What's up, gang? Welcome to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Huss and Connor with you today. Michael Remus enjoying a few days off as he will be throughout August, but we got Andrew working it. Great show yesterday with him doing his first show, and we are ready to go today. Lots of local today on the program. We're going to head down to Bomber practice, and Derek Taylor, voice of the Blue Bombers on 680 CGOB, going to join us in about 20 minutes, and we've got so much CFL to talk about with DT. I have just finished the lock shop, which ended early because the new owner of the Double E, as they're referring to it in Edmonton right now, the Edmonton Elks now have a new private owner. I believe it's Larry Thompson. So he was introduced to the media. Randy Ambrosi spoke. We'll talk to DT a little bit about that. But of course, the huge story this week is the return of Nathan Rourke, who is not only back with the British Columbia Lions, but will be back under center in the rematch between the Bombers and Lions on Sunday night. Still seems almost surreal to be saying that, but that's what we're getting ready for on Sunday night from BC Place in Vancouver. So DT from Bomber practice, we'll hit those stories, and of course, get the latest on the Bombers as they come back from this extended break following that 25-0 shutout against the British Columbia Lions heading into the rematch this Sunday. So DT first up. Brandon Rewucki a little bit later on, and Brandon and I naturally will get into some of the hockey topics. I'm very interested to see what he has to say about the Oilers mess with the dual offer sheet. So we'll get to some of that, a little bit of Jets as well, maybe a little look ahead to the National Football League. And then at 2:30, we were going to have Andrew Collier on, but I'm actually really excited to welcome on for the first time Trevor Curl, who is the play-by-play voice of the Winnipeg Goldeyes. And as we'll get to with Connor in just a minute, another big win by the Goldeyes, another gem by Joey Matalovich, who it really is authoring one of the greatest pitching seasons in Goldeyes history right now. And the Fish, who were, 8 or 9 games back about 6 weeks ago, now have a 2-game lead for first place in the division in the American Association. Now, unfortunately, if you look outside, it's kind of ugly right now. I don't know what the status of the game is tonight. I'm planning on being there tonight. Hopefully Mother Nature will assist us, but I know Andrew's, I think, going to be quite busy this afternoon making some calls and evaluating to the status for tonight's game, but it certainly would be nice to get this one in, finish off the series between these two teams battling for first place, and then get ready for the big weekend. So we'll get to all of that. But with Trevor on the program, we'll really get to dive into, the players that he's been seeing and calling all year long, and in particular, this amazing Goldeyes pitching staff, and find out a little bit more about Trevor, too, who comes from the Pacific Northwest in his first year calling games for the Fish. So all of that coming up on the show today. Just before we bring in Mr. Hrabchak, got to give a shout out to all of our sponsors that make the show happen. Don't forget, the latest CFL 110 is up on the Winnipeg Sports Talk YouTube channel and the podcast feed. Pump in CFL 110 wherever you get your favorite podcasts, and make sure to give a sub to that. It is presented by Garage Living Winnipeg. Also want to thank our main WST sponsors, Princess Auto, Coolbet Canada, Consolidated Supply, Rollies Transfer, Manitoba Battery, Princess, Canadian Club, Wallace & Wallace, F Apparel, Little Brown Jug, The Beer Can, along with Next Door, and Hoagie Boys down on South Osborne, Royal Sports, Boston Pizza, the Goldeyes, Assiniboia Downs, Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge, a Breezy Bend Golf Report for our friends over at Breezy Bend, and we will get to a Why Not question of the day for non-auto corporate Waverly McGillivray, and of course, the Cool Bet Lines. All right, let's get this show on the road. Welcome to everybody hanging out with us in chat today, live on YouTube. Shout out to the podcast listeners, and welcome in Connor Hrabchak. What's up, Connor? How are you?
I'm doing great. Another great night at the ballpark last night. Another huge win for the Goldeyes, clinched the series win over Sioux Falls. So I'm doing great. Another beautiful night. Not as beautiful today. And as someone who, has a working shift tonight, I can tell you that the game status is looking dicey. But yeah, great series clinch for the Goldeyes last night. I'm doing great.
I'm so pissed about this weather because as a bit of a weather wonk, I'm always paying attention to that in the summer. In the winter, I just know it's going to suck. I never look at the weather.
You don't have to look. Yeah.
If we're going to get a 40-centimeter dump, we'll find out and we'll know. In the summer, though, when you're going to go golfing or you're going to go out, you're paying attention to when the sweet spot of weather. And this entire week was looking to be gorgeous. It was supposed to be one kind of calmer, quieter, cloudier, potentially rainier day. Well, that was supposed to be yesterday. Well, that didn't happen. Unfortunately, it moved on to today. And I basically planned when I'm going to the game around getting past yesterday. Bad move. Fingers crossed on this. And again, we'll stay in touch with the Goldeyes and hopefully maybe towards the end of the program have a bit better of an idea of if they are planning. Problem with this, though, Connor, is that this is the final game of the series. And at this point in the season, I should pull up the schedule. I don't believe there's more home games against Sioux Falls, if I'm not mistaken. So,
No.
Then how do you make this game up if it's not played? They'll have to get on a bus and play somewhere else tomorrow. So it does become somewhat problematic. And the fact of the matter is, it's not like it's a monsoon or anything. It's just sort of been steady all day. And if you look at the hour-by-hour forecast, it looks like it might lighten up, but I don't know if it is going to dry out right now. But anyways, that's something that we'll stay on top of for anyone that was planning on getting out to the ballpark tonight to see the finale. We're going to talk more Goldeyes later on, but Joey Matalovich, I tweeted yesterday, and I would love at some point, we'll get Andrew on maybe towards the end of the regular season and can really truly compare statistically, but all season long, he's been the leader of this pitching staff and has been at the top of the league in just about everything: strikeouts, shutouts, complete games, all of that. Another gem last night. What he went 7 innings, 1 hit, and did it against one of the other top pitchers in the league. Fish wins 7-0. Continue this hot play, and now for the first time this year, have a little bit of gap in first place between everybody else chasing him.
Yeah. Joey Matulovic, unbelievable. 7 innings pitched, 8 strikeouts, 1 hit allowed, and obviously no runs allowed as the Goldeyes won 7-0. Just unbelievable. There were multiple times where batters struck out looking and they were just guessing. Like it was a curveball, it would land right in the middle of the zone, and the batters just like dumbfounded at the plate and how that found the zone. And we look at the TrackMan, the stats, and the ball is right in the middle of the zone. Like he's fooling batters. The pitch clock isn't even in his brain, because if you've watched Joey Matulovic this year, takes the ball, basically gives the catcher a nod, and then throws it within 4 seconds of getting the ball. Like he's when he gets in that rhythm and he gets ahead and counts, he's the best pitcher in the league. But when he does that, he's practically unhittable. And it's so much fun to watch him pitch. And then last night as well, Max Murphy hit 2 home runs. That's now 3 home runs in the 2 games against Sioux Falls here. And with the game potentially being rained out tonight, huge 2 wins to go up 2 games on Sioux Falls for first place in the West. Like you said, not sure when they're going to be able to make this game up if it does get canceled. So to get that series win, to go up 2 games right now with the uncertainty of this last game of the series is huge. And Max Murphy, 2 home runs again last night. He's starting to heat up, and the Fish 7-0 win. Max Murphy 2 homers, Matulovic strong 7 innings. Like they're the best ticket in town right now. It's so much fun to watch.
I can't say enough about what Logan Watkins has done with this team. Like last year was arguably the worst in Goldeyes history. The team sucked. Greg Taggart, the manager, never really, he came in with a very different philosophy. He was an experienced guy. It didn't click with the players. It didn't work on the field. And this was, in a lot of ways, sort of scorched earth, with the exception of a few incredibly talented players like Dason Crows and Max Murphy. And it speaks to just how quality this organization is, that they're able to bring players back that probably didn't have a great time playing under the former manager, but also to what Logan did. A younger guy with major league experience coming in, great connections, throughout baseball, and getting some real talented young players. And this has been, we all remember how they started with those 4 straight losses, that real tough spot down in Texas against his former team. They just continue to get better and better and better throughout the year. I think we'll go down and looking at, we kind of focus on Matulovic, but the entire pitching staff, top to bottom, starters as well as relievers, as good as we've ever seen right now. There has been some times where there's been a power outage hitting. That's not the case right now. And when the Goldeyes are getting bats on the balls with the pitchers that they're putting out, they can win every night. So we won't quite put the playoff tickets on sale, but it's looking pretty darn good heading down the final couple weeks of August into this weekend. And as I said, Trevor Curl is going to join us. One other thing quickly on last night's game before we move on.
The Geese.
The Geese. If you go to Connor's Twitter feed, X feed, there is a 2-minute clip of Trevor Curl, who's going to be calling. We'll ask him about this later on today.
Yes. Where
Geese invaded the field, and let's just say it was a team effort to get them off. Every Goldeye player at one point or the other chasing the Geese around. They brought that tractor, the thing that pushes the ground down. Like the grounds crew got into it, and Curl did just an absolutely hilarious job of calling it for people watching on the broadcast. 2 minutes of complete hilarity that you only get in baseball and you only get in the minor leagues.
Yeah, my favorite part of this, because this is how I felt as well, is the Geese landed in right center field, and Trevor goes, "We're gonna wait for the birds? Really? Like, really? We're gonna stop the game right now?" And the game completely stopped. Logan came out talking to the umps. He's laughing. The umps are laughing as the outfielders are chasing them around. Can't get them out of the ballpark, so the infielders join in. Dason Cruz at one point goes to throw his glove. Like he takes his glove off and goes to throw it at the Geese. Then you see the tractor come out of nowhere. Like the crowd was loving it. Everyone was dying laughing. It was such a funny moment. And then they finally got out. Our great in-house music guy was playing Geese noises over the video board as well. It was hilarious. And yeah, go check out the clip if you haven't. But Trevor nailed it, describing the hilarious moment with the Geese on the field and them being unable to get them off and continue the game as it was delayed a good 3 minutes because of these birds.
Well, this is a bummer for fans. Maybe good for you getting a night off, but the game tonight's canceled. Fish just tweeted out recently, tonight's game against Sioux Falls has been canceled. The game will not be made up at a later date as the two teams don't face each other again during the regular season. If you had tickets for tonight's game, they can be exchanged for any remaining regular season home game. This is just going to be a little blip, like basically tonight into tomorrow. And we do have a huge series coming up. Sioux City coming in with some great promos. Tomorrow night, the Fred Penner bobblehead giveaway, Bark in the Park on Sunday. So if you were planning, like myself, to go to the game tonight, get out there on the weekend. Other thing that we're going to be getting to, as I said, with DT, new ownership in Edmonton. But Connor, you, me, everybody counting down to Sunday night. Like the one thing I'll say about this Bomber BC game, and again, I've got something on Sunday night, so I'll be paying attention to it and PVRing it and kind of watching it later on, which is a little unfortunate. But the fact that we have to wait this long to get going on. But man, what a boost for BC, knowing that they've got a few extra days to get Nathan Rourke reacquainted. And I'll be honest, I don't think it's going to take too long. I mean, you got the Harris Fajardo matchup, although it doesn't look like Cody's going to start, although he's going to be back up tomorrow, which is strange. But Sunday night, I guarantee you this, the ratings are going to be up. And I know we talked to Matt Baker yesterday. They're selling a lot of tickets in BC that they may not have otherwise for the return of Rourke in this massive rematch between Winnipeg and BC.
Yeah, you know what I was thinking about yesterday, Huss, is we talked about the game yesterday and we didn't even mention Kenny Lawler at all and how big of a boost that'll be for the Bombers offense. Who comes out is another question. Maybe Derek Taylor will have some insight into that. I'm excited to listen to this conversation coming up here. But yeah, this is going to be such an awesome game. Nathan Rourke's return in BC. It's going to be a huge crowd because of his return. And the Bombers coming off the big win, a super long bye week. I mean, us, the fans, we feel like we've got to wait a long time. How must the players feel? Are they over rested? Are they ready to go? Are they chomping at the bit to get back on the field? And I know Kenny Lawler's chomping at the bit to get back on the field because it's been a long time. He got hurt in like the first quarter of the first game. Super unlucky. And now he's back against BC. And I'm not sure. I think someone said it yesterday on the show that Kenny Lawler typically always has big games against BC. It might have been you who said that, Huss. But I'm excited for this game. I think there could be a lot of points scored, even though the Bombers defense played so well a few weeks ago. Nathan Rourke, Kenny Lawler, the Bombers offense has looked a little bit better. This game could go so many ways, and I'm just excited to watch it all play out on Sunday.
It's funny when you think about, like, let's just take last year's series between these two teams. BC came in early in the season and shocked Winnipeg with that win early on, and the Bombers have barely lost at home over the last couple of years. A little different to start this season, but came in at 37-3 in their last 40 home games. One of the three was that early game last season against BC, their first home game of the year. They rattled off 8 straight after that. BC came back in a few weeks later, and the Bombers smashed them. Very similar to what happened this year. BC came in, clearly the better team in the first game, although the score maybe flattered the Bombers a little bit. And then you could say that the score flattered BC in the 25-0 game a couple of weeks ago. Yeah. And then last year, that game, Connor, between Winnipeg and BC that went right down to the end, that crazy tackle to prevent BC winning on the final one. That was the difference in Winnipeg getting home field in the West final. And, I talked to Gabe Renzi last night. We were just talking about this game coming up, and he goes, it's so wild what's happened in the league. Like the Bombers start, what's happened with Saskatchewan and BC. I mean, obviously the records aren't the same, but it almost feels like we're getting into the second half of the season and starting all over again in the West. This is a massive, massive game, though, especially for the Bombers. I mean, BC has the luxury. Listen, they don't want to lose 4 in a row and get to 500, but the Winnipeg Blue Bombers were 2-6 before their game against BC last week. And I mean, if we go into that next week with the Bombers coming back at home at back-to-back wins against BC at 4-6, listen, the fans have been behind the team all year long. We've seen the great crowds and everyone like that, but I think it'll be even more momentum for Winnipeg, both on the field and in the stands going into it. But this is just going to be a heck of a football game. And frankly, the entire week of the CFL, which begins tonight with Ottawa and the return of Jeremiah Masoli in Calgary. The schedule makers did a heck of a good job for setting things up for some great drama this week in the league.
Absolutely. And you mentioned that game in the last week of the season last year. Still to this day, I think that's one of the best regular season CFL games I've ever seen, was that classic between the Bombers and the Lions, because it was basically a playoff game, and having the home field advantage kind of baked into that game, and the way it ended, the overtime, and they had a touchdown, but he just got tracked down right at the end. Like, that was just drama from start to finish. But if we get anything like that this Sunday, count me in. And yeah, there's a lot of potential for a lot of good games this weekend. I'm going to be glued to the TV watching the CFL because it starts tonight, like you said, Ottawa, Calgary. I didn't hear the news of Fajardo not starting. That's really interesting. But the other 2 games of the weekend, super interesting as well. And then, yeah, the main event is Sunday.
Yeah, on the Fajardo thing, I'm so choked that he's not, like, he is dressing. They're dressing him as the backup, which makes no sense to me. Like, if the guy's good to go, how the hell do you not start him in Regina against the Riders? I mean, anyways, I almost believe it when I see it.
He doesn't want to go?
Well, exactly. And maybe they're being cautious or what, but listen, if the guy's in uniform and is able to come in a backup role, how the hell do you not have your number one in a game like this against a great team and defense like the Saskatchewan Roughriders had, not to mention all the history of Cody in Saskatchewan with his tenure with the league. And I don't believe they went there last year. So this is sort of the homecoming. And, his reception there, I think, is going to be great. Easier for Rider fans to welcome him back with a smile on their face, knowing that their team's a lot better than it has been in the past couple seasons. But listen, the West is absolutely entirely wide open. But we'll all be cheering for Ottawa tonight, even though Calgary seems to only win at home and lose on the road tonight. Would be nice to see Calgary get a loss. And of course, Edmonton's hot. They're favored on the road against the thing. And as I mentioned, Edmonton has a new owner. He was just introduced in the last hour in Edmonton at Commonwealth Stadium. Shout out to the EST guys. They did a great job. Their new guy, Reed Wilkins, who's starting an afternoon show after Labor Day. the first question in, Reed Wilkins from Edmonton Sports Talk, which I think is a bit of an eye-opener because he'd been such a mainstay with the Chorus Ched station there for so long. But great to see what our pals in Edmonton are doing. And they had the full team down there. And, of course, Dusty being such a big part of the CFL broadcast, a big part of that. So, listen, we're going to have Derek Taylor come on in just a couple minutes. I should correct myself. I got days mixed up, by the way. Just back to this homestand for the Goldeyes on the weekend. Tomorrow is the Manitoba Social Night. Again, the Fred Benner bobblehead night with him playing the guitar and the cat on it as well. Looks amazing. That's going to be given out to the first 1,000 fans. Fireworks tomorrow night as well. But the Bark in the Park is Saturday. I misspoke. I said it was Sunday. The Bark in the Park is Saturday. And you can go to goldeyes.com for information on bringing your dog and all the details around that. And the Goldeyes are wearing jerseys.
Oh, yeah.
That is just pictures of everybody's dog. Again, only in minor league baseball. It is so great. So you got that. And then on Sunday, they got a heck of a giveaway from Column Air, a beluga trip to Churchill. So anyways, it's going to be a big weekend. Unfortunately, no game tonight, as we've just had confirmation that the game against Sioux Falls is canceled. So if you did have tickets for tonight's game, rearrange your plans, get to the games this weekend or on that final homestand of the year. All right, expecting Derek Taylor in just a minute. I mentioned CFL 110 is good to go already, and it's there for you. We're going to hopefully get Derek in just a minute. Connor, hang tight. But CFL 110 is brought to you by our friends at Garage Living Winnipeg. Gang, the push is on. If you want to have a clean, organized garage this fall, which will completely change your winter before the snow flies, give Garage Living Winnipeg a call at 204-999-1234. It's been a busy, productive summer for the guys at Garage Living, and they've transformed dozens of garages in and around the city. Now they're gearing up for a busy fall as the push is on to get clients booked, garages designed, and installations complete before winter. Don't miss your chance to clear the clutter, organize and beautify your garage with polyaspartic floor coating, made in Canada premium metal cabinetry, and slat wall storage solutions, along with options for lifts. So you can work on that car or your sled during the winter in the beauty and comfort of your new gorgeous garage. Visit their website at garageliving.com or call our friend Pat Kanuga. He's loving the shift from his early morning radio guy to garage designer. You can get it, Pat, at 204-999-1234 for a chat of what can be done in your garage, and maybe make an appointment to visit him in their showroom at 981 Main Street downtown. Garage Living Winnipeg, garages made for living. If you've got a move coming up, gang, you should get in touch with our pals down at Rowley's Transfer. Family owned for over 60 years. The most trusted name in moving in Manitoba for decades. And with their extensive logistics business, Rowley's is all around the city and southern Manitoba on a daily basis, which means flexible timing, flexible routes, and the bottom line, the best prices on moving as well. What you're going to want to do, head on over to their beautiful new website, relaunched at rowleys.com. In the top right corner, you'll see request a quote. Let them know where you're moving, when you would like to move, and what you need to move. And you can also, upload pictures of things like furniture and boxes that'll be done. They'll turn it around with a great quote for you and give you the white glove treatment on all your precious items as you move on to the next stage in your life. For your next move, make it Rowley's, the most trusted name in moving in Manitoba. Find out more or request a quote today at rowleys.com. And don't forget, when you do that, use the promo code WST. Ryan and the gang have a great deal for WST listeners with a special discount if you use the promo code WST for moving services and moving supplies. Speaking of supplies, Consolidated Supply has had a great summer. I mean, they're so entrenched in the golf community that they're the go-to people for all the irrigation systems for courses all around the province. not to mention golf carts as well as the exclusive club card dealer, as well as artificial turf. But here's the thing, they can do all of that for your property as well, residential or commercial. Thinking about that dream putting green in the backyard, chipping, they can help you out with that. They've also got great accessories, shall we say. If you've got a golf cart that you need parts for, you want to trick out, Consolidated Supplies the people to talk to on that. They've also got other great options for your property, including hot tubs and amazing outdoor kitchen options. And of course, they are the leaders in small engine parts and repair. And if you're sick and tired of mowing the lawn by now, the full line of Crest Power Tools is there as well, including the satellite guided RTK robot mower, which will give you more time chilling and watching the robot do the work out in the lawn. You got to check it all out. Pop by and see them at their showroom, open to the public, 1395 Niagara Road East, or you can find out more online for Consolidated Supply at cte.ca. And of course, for all of these things we're talking about when it comes to the weekends, the fun weekends in Manitoba, you got to have power. And Manitoba Battery is the place for all of your battery needs. Whether you got a trolling motor, you need it. You're boating, bigger boat motors, ATVs, campers, pretty much anything that you might be using for a great time in a Manitoba summer weekend, Manitoba Battery has the battery for it. That is guaranteed. The other thing I can guarantee is they got the best prices in town, beating the pants off the big box stores. For all your battery needs, shop local, get the best prices in town from Manitoba Battery, with 2 locations now on Logan and on Dovercourt in the south end of the city. But their service extends beyond their stores because Donnie and the gang will deliver those batteries to you for free with any purchase over $60 anywhere in the city of Winnipeg. It's just that easy. Pop by and see them today. Give them a call or order online at manitobabattery.com. All right, we're having a little trouble getting DT in from the stadium. So Connor and I will keep it rolling, and we may as well get right into this Bomber talk. And and again, we'll leave the Elks conversation for the time being. We'll get one of the Edmonton guys on a little later on at some point to talk about it in the aftermath. I'm very interested in seeing, what everyone has to say about this, because this is all, the name thing takes over everything. It is so polarizing. But I really do believe if they had a better football team over the last few years, this probably wouldn't be such of a big issue. But as far as for Winnipeg right now, going into this game, Connor, Mike O'Shea had some interesting comments at the end of the last game. He said that's exactly what we wanted to be. It was a great win for the guys that are going to go out there, but it won't mean a damn thing if they don't come back ready to go. And, we think of the bye week being such a benefit to teams in the Canadian Football League, because of the wear and tear and how much games, the short weeks that they play. Well, it was the exact opposite of that in Winnipeg a couple weeks ago. When BC was coming off the bye, the Bombers were playing on the short week, and the Bombers absolutely smashed the Lions. And, with this really strange schedule, I mean, the Bombers played on Thursday, had the bye week. Well, it's almost like they had back-to-back buys because they played early and now they play late. And we're talking about more than 2 weeks between a football game. And, getting back to practice and getting right back at it, that there'll be no shortage of pushing the details of Mike O'Shea's club. But this is going to be a huge test for Winnipeg to make sure that they are back. And there is no laurels to be rested on for the Winnipeg Football Club, knowing the challenge that they have that cranked up a little bit when Rourke signed with BC earlier this week.
Absolutely. And I think the Bombers players are sort of like well aware of that. Like even after the 25-0 win, you listen to the post-game comments from O'Shea, Oliveira, Colaros. They were all asked about the upcoming bye, and they even like kind of reiterated what you said there. Like, we can't just go on vacation and say, oh, we're good now, we're back, no big deal. We'll just come back and do the same thing next Sunday with the double bye. Having said that, the extended bye is awesome for the Bombers right now, because through the first couple of weeks, they were maybe the most injured team in the CFL, or one of. Now they're going to get a lot of those players back. Kenny Lawler obviously being the biggest name, but there's a lot of players on that D line as well that had some injuries really early on. They came along in 25-0 win. They're going to get even healthier, another week to prepare for Nathan Rourke now, like you said. But this double bye and the ability to get those players back, get back to practice. Hopefully they didn't take the bye week off. Maybe that's what BC did. Maybe they got a little complacent, top team in the West. But I think they were aware of that and they remained focused, because you heard it right after the game, after that 25-0 win. They weren't satisfied with their season so far heading into the bye, and they were ready to kind of attack the bye, maybe stay, do some extra workouts, come to practice early. And I think they'll be ready to go. Maybe you'll see a little bit of rust because you can't replicate game action. So maybe the first half, maybe the offense will come out a little bit sluggish, but I think they'll be ready to go, and we're in for a great game Sunday.
Well, and listen, you nailed it. Everyone's going to be talking about the return of Nathan Rourke to the CFL, and that is going to be the headline. That's all anyone's going to be talking about. But this Bomber offense got a hell of a lot more dangerous with 89 back in. And, hard to account for all the things that Kenny Lawler can do. I mean, the guy can catch anything, one of the best route runners in the league, just legit one of, if not the best receiver in the Canadian Football League. But what his presence will do to the other receivers and to Zach Collaros, knowing the attention that Kenny Lawler is going to garner, he's still going to get his balls. But I do wonder what that does for the other receivers that maybe might just have a little bit of extra room out there, which hasn't always been the case so far this year, which is why, a lot of times they've had to settle for field goals as opposed to putting it in the end zone.
Yeah, and the Lawler coming back is a big factor, but also the run game kind of getting going. You brought it up with Brady himself at his slow start to the season, and then he missed a game due to injury and wasn't really himself. But these past couple of weeks, like that 41 minutes time of possession number that they got in the win over BC, that's because they're getting 7-8 yards on first down running the ball. And then they're able to throw it short to Lucky Whitehead, and he can kind of bolt and get a first down on 2nd and 2. And I think staying ahead of the chains, being methodical, they're good to go. Brady Oliveira, Kenny Lawler, there's going to be a lot of options for this offense, and it's something we haven't seen since week 1, to be honest.
All right, listen, I got to give a shout out to our pal Andrew, because he has been working through a couple things behind the scenes, but I didn't think we were going to have him. And now I think we're going to give it a go with the voice of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers on CGOB, the one and only Derek Taylor. Now, let's see if we can bring in DT right now. DT, can you hear me okay? No, we're not hearing DT right now, unfortunately. We thought we had him, and then we didn't, Connor. But, oh, no, I think we've got Derek. Now it's just a matter of getting the audio right. DT, can you hear me okay? Okay, so we're having... So we're trying to utilize 2 different streaming services to get DT in here. So it might be a little issue. Oh, now I'm getting hair comments in there. Yes, thank you guys. Appreciate the comments on the hair. We'll work through it with Andrew and see if we can get the connection with Derek so that we can actually hear him. CFL does get going tonight. And we'll get to the cool bet lines a little later on. Dusty and I put together a little parlay for tonight for the first 3 games of the week. We're going to leave that Bomber game as a standalone. But Calgary, 3-point favorites tonight at home against the Ottawa Redblacks. We've got the Alouettes and the Saskatchewan Roughriders going at it on Friday. Now Montreal. This is so bizarre. When we looked at this game earlier today, like an hour ago, Saskatchewan was a 1-point favorite, and now the Alouettes are 1.5-point favorites. So I don't entirely understand what that's happening. Maybe they've said that Cody Fajardo, in fact, will be playing. We're gonna have to stay on top of that. In fact, Connor, do me a favor, just check Twitter and see if they've kind of changed that back, because a 2.5-point line movement suggests to me that maybe there's a little more information that wasn't being disclosed earlier. Saturday's game is the Elks and Ticats. That game is in the hammer. The Elks are the favorites at -1.5. And then we've had some continued line movement. BC now 1.5-point favorites against the Bombers. You've been waiting to bet the Bombers. That was a great time to do it. +110 for Winnipeg on the money line. Listen, I know we're not going to have a lot of time if we can do it, but we'll give one more crack. I guess, Andrew, it's probably not going to work with DTA. We'll look to get Derek maybe back on later on this week. and see if we can make that happen. It's always fun. I really am looking forward to just get Derek's take. And again, we'll have it on the CJOB pregame show and more heading into Sunday's game. But just what a big story this is for the game when it comes to the return of Nathan Rourke. You know what, Connor, I'm thinking, and Farhan Lalji had mentioned that and Baker was on with us yesterday saying just how many tickets that they had sold since the news of Rourke coming back. Like normally you would think a Sunday afternoon, I guess it's a 4:00 game there in BC, would be, maybe a little bit more of a challenge on the weekend. But man, I mean, I think we could have an incredible crowd for this game as well. That's just awesome. I mean, that's exactly the sort of thing that the CFL gains and the Lions gain from having a marquee player like him back in the lineup.
Absolutely. And I'm just taking a look at Farhan's tweet here that you mentioned, but he says, I think the BC Lions could reasonably sell another 5,000 seats for Sunday's game just because Rourke is in the lineup. They were trending to $29.30K before the announcement. If they do, at $50 a ticket, they'd immediately recover his $250,000 salary for 2024 in just this one game. So that's a little bit of the perspective into his salary this year. How much of a ticket boost he'll be. And Brady Oliveira brought it up in his great answer the other day saying, well, this is great for the league. He's going to sell tickets. More people are going to go because this guy was just in the NFL. Maybe it's a more recognizable name to people, maybe the more casual fan, or more people want to tag along to see this guy. Oh, this guy was almost in the NFL. Let me go check it out. Or just the diehard BC fans are really going to get out there and watch Nathan Rourke. But that is awesome for the league. Having a player like that who gets signed and has that much pull with ticket sales is really, really awesome. And I'm excited to see what the crowd turnout ends up being for that massive game. It's for the season series. It's a huge game this season. So I hope, well, I don't know if the players hope that the building's packed, but for CFL entertainment's sake, let's pack the building. It'll be a great game.
No, listen, I think the Bombers will say, bring it on. I mean,
Listen,
the one thing that we can say about this Winnipeg team, and listen, they didn't look like that team in the last 4 years early on in the season. They sure as hell did the last time we saw them. They like packed houses. They like big games. They like playing in games that mean something, and this one is going to be as close to that sort of an environment, I think, as we've seen, Connor. I mean, BC looked like they were going to run away with things at the start. The Bombers were absolutely in no man's land. I mean, with the way they were playing, the mistakes they were making. And listen, a lot of those games were close, but this is professional sports. It is a results-based business, and the results were not there. 0-4, 2-6. What they did to BC, though, I think put the entire Canadian Football League on notice that if you were dumb enough earlier to write off the Bombers, saying they're too old, they don't have it anymore, they're out of it, they came in and emphatically, in all caps, said, hold up, we are still that team. And I mean, and that's why this matchup, on Sunday, I think is, I mean, listen, it's important for BC. And I think, listen, if they were playing the Hamilton Tiger Cats, and if they had, even if Vernon Adams had gotten hurt, but like say they had won last week against Edmonton, I'm not sure that they're in the situation that they are. Like, listen, would they have tried to get Nathan Rourke back? Absolutely. I mean, just for the reason that you just mentioned. He's box office. He's an incredibly talented player. They would want him back if they could get him, not to mention not have him go to one of the other Canadian Football League teams. But let's not forget that while the Bombers lost 4 in a row to start this season, if the Bombers beat BC on Sunday night, they'll have lost 4 in a row. And the losses count the same at this point of the year as the start of the year, at the end of the year. The only losses that are more important are the ones that happen in the playoffs when you don't have another day to live.
Exactly. And another part that you were brought up, the big lights and not being kind of the storyline. How about being an underdog on the road? Like the Bombers haven't been an underdog many times over these last 4 years, definitely not at home. We saw that for the first time this year. It wasn't the Montreal game. It was one of the earlier games they had lost. They were 0-4. They were at home, and they were a home underdog, which was weird. They were a home underdog against BC as well, I believe, and they obviously ended up winning 25-0. But being the underdog, not being the main storyline, even though you just beat this team 25-0. Kenny Lawler's return flying under the radar. Like, I think there's a lot of kind of bulletin board material here. It's like, hey, we just beat this team and everyone's talking about BC and they're the favorite, even though they've lost 3 straight and we're coming off a bye and getting healthier and we have the championship pedigree and we've been there before. So I think you'll see a really motivated team. And like you said, they seem to elevate in big games as they've done over the last 4 years. And this is a huge game coming out of the bye. They're rested, they're healthy. I'm super excited. I'm building myself up with the hope, and we might get crushed if Nathan Rourke comes out and throws 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. But I'm super pumped for this game just to see how the Bombers look with the healthiest they've been since week 1, honestly, and with the motivation of being an underdog and playing against Nathan Rourke, who, like you said, is box office. Everyone wants to see him. Mm-hmm. How about you kind of shut the crowd up and go into BC and make a statement?
Unfortunately, okay, so no DT today. It just wasn't working out from the stadium. We'll look to reconnect with him maybe in the next couple days, or certainly next week. Of course, the Bombers are back next week at home on Friday, and then are you going to Labor Day this weekend? Are you going to Regina?
No.
Have you done it before?
Not. I've never done it before. No,
Connor. Listen, you're getting older. You're ready for that next stage in your Bomber fandom. And folks, if you've ever seen Connor, always, listen, he does a great job wearing the suit at the arena. Looks great in his collared WST shirt on the show. He plays the role very well. He also plays the role very well at the stadium. And that is when you might not even recognize him. I mean, you want to talk about going all out along with many of the Bomber fans. He's got that thing on. That has to be on your list, very
Labor
soon
Day?
to get out to listen. There's nothing more fun than Labor Day weekend in Regina, which actually reminds me, I was talking to Jeffrey Bannon last night, and I know there's some people that are like, oh, I'm going to see how things go, and typical Winnipegger last minute. I think there are 4 spots left on the crew tour, which I'm going to be hosting one of the buses. Bombing's going to be hosting the other one. Son of Dirk, who Mr. Dirksen, who I think is in the chat, who won the Cool Bet contest we did. That is he'll be there with one of his friends. But if you're thinking wait a second, I don't have any plans on Labor Day weekend right now. Why the hell am I not already going to Regina? You might be thinking that yourself right now, Connor. At the 1930 crew at gmail.com. I retweeted a post last night. If you go to my X account, if you want to make a little last minute plan, it is going to be a hell of a lot of fun. There really is nothing like that weekend in Regina all year long. The Banjo Bowl is amazing, and it's gone to a whole nother level this year, or these past few years. The minute they finally listened to me and moved the game to Saturday, it's changed everything. So we do get a lot of Rider fans coming in, and it really does feel like that home and home. But the long weekend, Labor Day in Regina, is so much fun. I cannot wait to get together with the gang and get out there, leaving early Saturday morning and coming back on Monday. Again, the 1930 crew on X, on Instagram, or if you just go to my X feed, hustle around, you'll see the link. I think there's 4 spots left right now. So if you're thinking about coming out, do not wait, because then it's you'll have waited too long and it won't be happening. It's shocking you're even able to do it right now, but we are not too far away. All right, Connor, listen, we've talked football for a little bit. I'm going to get into some hockey topics with Rewucki coming up later on. And then Trevor Curl at the bottom of the hour with some chat on the fish season so far. If you're just popping in right now, bad news about tonight's game. It's canceled. Sioux Falls is getting on the bus and getting out of town. This game will not be made up. And that is a real blow for Sioux Falls, because they lost the first 2 games of this series. They probably wanted to play more than the Fish did tonight, knowing that they could get back to within 1 game. But so anyways, no baseball tonight at the park. But very quiet on the Edmonton standpoint when it comes to these RFAs that were signed in Broberg and Dylan Holloway. I'm not sure if you caught Elliot Friedman's back from Paris, and dropped his first solo 32 thoughts post the departure of Jeff Merrick, which is another conversation, I guess, to have. Really too bad about what happened to Jeff. But I'm not sure if you caught that. The numbers of what the Broberg camp was asking for 1.8 million.
Yes.
And ended up getting 4 or 5 or whatever the number was from St. Louis. And the Holloway camp was like kind of 1, 2, 1, 3, and ended up getting 2.29, whatever it was, $1 below the threshold that would have taken it to higher compensation. You know that there's people in that Edmonton office kicking themselves going, how the hell did we not get this done earlier? And maybe at the expense of one of their signings. I mean, you're talking about those two numbers. If you got those done, you got those two players instead of a Jeff Skinner and Adam Henrique, and you're not potentially losing those two players. I mean, they really did sort of set themselves up for this. And I know they're probably going to take their sweet time right until the deadline. Normally in these situations, whenever it's happened before, you kind of knew this team is going to match. There's no doubt about it. Or they'll say, you know what, this is stupid. Go ahead, do it. Not in this case right now. You've got Edmonton burning up the phone. Stan Bowman probably talking to everybody else trying to find a way out. But when you look at this roster, who they've committed to, there is no easy way out. St. Louis obviously knew that when they got into this.
Yeah, my first reaction to hearing their ask at the 1.8 and the 1.2 is what we talked about yesterday. Is like, yeah, I thought the Oilers had a great offseason signing Skinner, Arvidsson, Henrique, but you could have had Broberg and Holloway, who are young, cheap players, at 1.8 and 1.2, and you went out and signed Jeff Skinner for $3 million. Like the Broberg one is a huge loss, because at 1.8 million, he could have played on their second pair next year. He could have played like alongside an Evan Bouchard if they wanted to split up Ekholm and Bouchard. I know that pairing has been electric for the Oilers, so they probably wouldn't, but he would have been a top 4 player next year at 1.8 million. And with how he played in the playoffs, that is just a huge fail to let that go by the wayside in exchange for these older, aging veterans like an Adam Henrique, who will help your team. And he has that experience from when he made that cup run like a decade and a bit ago. But man, losing Philip Broberg when he was asking for 1.8 million, that is a tough blow. And again, props to St. Louis for jumping all over it, being aware of the Oilers cap situation and kind of putting them in this position. But the Oilers completely messed this up. Like yesterday, I was a little bit more like, okay, they still had a good offseason. Maybe they were just hoping that their numbers would come down. But at 1.8 and 1.2 for these two young up and coming players who are going to play big roles in their lineup next year, that's inexcusable. That's inexcusable.
Two first round picks. Like Broberg was 8th overall. Yeah. I can't remember. Holloway, I think, was in the teens. But I mean, the fact of the matter is, like if this was last year or something, like they still have potential, but they haven't really done anything yet. Okay. And I know Broberg was in Bakersfield for the majority of last season. You know where he was in the Stanley Cup final? Playing every night and playing an important role. Like, you guys are ready to contribute right now. And to just put themselves in a situation where this was even a possibility. Now, what was interesting, I heard Jamie McLennan on TSN yesterday, and I heard Andy Strickland on with the EST guys talking about it. Both of them said that if Ken Holland was still the general manager, this would not have happened. This just simply wouldn't happen. Armstrong and Ken are really tight, which is a little strange. I mean, I would say that's somewhat negligent. And I know there's a lot of talk that, you know, in a lot of ways, the GMs are a little bit of a boys club. And certainly it would drive me nuts if I was with the PA, because that actually borders on collusion. You know, just saying that we've got an agreement that we won't utilize everything under the CBA to make our teams better. It got me thinking, though, about the way that this shook out. Like, they told Ken Holland, listen, thank you, we're moving on after, you know, we paid you whatever it was, $5 million for 5 years. They got to the Cup final all the way to Game 7. And some will say, despite some of the moves Ken Holland made, whatever, everyone's got their own opinion. I after hearing those sort of conversations, you wonder whether there was some element of revenge on this executed by St. Louis. Like, this makes sense for St. Louis to do. If you've got the money and you don't mind overpaying a player, you're essentially buying an asset at a much lower price compensation-wise than you'd be able to get him otherwise. But it is fascinating, the personal relationships between these guys. And they obviously don't have any connection to Jeff Jackson or Stan Bowman. So now with Ken Holland at the door, jump on it right now. Like, the behind-the-scenes personal relationships in any business are interesting, but more so in this National Hockey League when it comes to GMs, that this is happening right now. And I know a lot of the other insiders haven't been around to give their 2 cents in. And again, they'd be very careful because the GMs are the guys that feed them a lot of their information as to how they kind of operate the information that is transmitted to the public throughout it. But if you actually believe, like many do, that this wouldn't happen if Ken Holland was there, it's a pretty interesting statement on the way business is done in the National Hockey League.
And I think another aspect to this is the fact that going through the Stanley Cup playoffs and through the finals, it was being reported that Holland was out regardless. Like, if they had won Game 7 of the finals, I still think he would have been let go, which is, I mean, again, I don't like some of the moves he's made in Edmonton. I mean, the Matthias Ekholm trade was great, and that's turned out great. But some of the other contracts, Jack Campbell, most notably, just really
everyone
odd
loved it
moves.
when he made it, by the way.
Right. Yes. Hindsight's always 20/20. That is fair. But I do not hate the idea of moving on from Ken Holland in that situation. But basically, the whole world knew that they were moving on from him no matter what happened in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And that even adds maybe fuel to the fire for Ken Holland leaving, and then his best buddy to then offer sheet the team that he just left. Like, there's a lot of connections there. I know I'm not going to play conspiracy theorist, but it's interesting. It's really interesting. And props to the Blues. This is a really solid move for them, and they're in the Central Division. So they'll be a tougher team next year with presumably both of those players, or maybe just one, maybe just Broberg can help out their blue line. But props to them for being on top of it, and maybe Ken Holland had a little bit to do with it. I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. We're here in Winnipeg, and all we've got to talk about is a first-place baseball team, a resurgent Bomber team that's got a big game on Sunday. Waiting to see what happens with a couple of acts of business that the Jets need to do. Edmonton, they've got a political war over the name of their team. They're selling their team, and after going to the Cup final, it's now crisis mode for Oiler management based on their regarding their 2 top young players. Brandon Rewucki is going to come in, and we're going to start off on that topic, as well as get to a little football. Of course, we talked a lot of Bombers so far today for obvious reasons with this huge game coming up. All of our Bomber reports brought to you by Princess Auto, proud sponsors of the Bombers. And of course, the home of the Bombers, Princess Auto Stadium. We'll be back at Princess Auto Stadium a week tomorrow for another Bomber home game. Princess Auto Tailgate opens at 5:30, $5 beers, $3.50 poppin' hot dogs. The place to be before every Blue Bomber game. And of course, Princess Auto, headquartered, founded right here in Winnipeg, now coast to coast, but with 2 locations to serve you, Panet Road, Portage Avenue West, where you'll find the best selection and the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. One thing I can tell you that'll be available at Princess Auto and be all around the stadium is, of course, Canadian Club, Canada's favorite Canadian whiskey, and the official spirit of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Pick it up throughout Princess Auto Stadium, as well as Canadian Club and Ginger Ale. And as we get into what's looking like a beautiful weekend, you're going to head out of town. You're going to hit your Manitoba liquor marts. Make sure to check out the entire Beam Suntory factory, the entire Beam Suntory family of spirits, including get yourself some Hornitos to cheers those 60-yard bombs from Sergio Castillo, as he instructed us when he joined us last month on the program. But CC and Ginger is also available, pre-mixed in cans, ready to go. Throw it on some ice, and that's available at your local beer vendor as well. So if you want to mix it up a little bit, next time you head to your local beer store, grab that CC and Ginger as well. I do want to thank our friends at Wallace & Wallace. we've got another weekend coming up. You know what's better than building a fence on the weekend? Anything. And if you do need a fence built, just leave it to the experts at Wallace & Wallace, the leaders in fencing and overhead doors since 1946. If you need the security and protection of a new fence, or if winter did a number on your old one, give them a call. They got vinyl, ornamental, welded wire, chain link, or wood fences. And if it's time to replace your garage door, they've got Winnipeg's largest selection of overhead garage doors. 204-452-2700 is the number. The Wallace & Wallace team will arrange a time to come on and give you a free estimate. You can also visit them at wallacefences.com or pop down to their showroom on Lawson Crescent off of Kenaston. And guys, I don't want to freak you out, but fall is just around the corner. If you are looking into your closet and realize, oh, geez, I got to up my menswear game for events, work, and everything that comes with the change of the seasons, get on over to F Apparel. Custom suits beginning at $400, along with chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles, and an incredible selection of menswear accessories. 15% discount for wedding parties when the fellas get their suits at F Apparel. Take advantage of that. Best place to do it is 190 Smith Street downtown. You can also find out more online or make an appointment for a fitting at EPHapparel.com. All right, let's welcome in our pal Brandon Rewucki, the host of Skates and Plates. Less skates, more plates these days in the middle of summer. What's going on, Brandon? How are you?
Yeah, that pretty much sums it up. It was a nice like 8-minute intro in the last episode about some summer digs that I've been out to lately. But doing good, man. Doing good other than that.
I was just about to say, what while the hockey news is quiet, have you unearthed some gems for the foodies out there this week? What's the best thing that you've eaten, not prepared by yourself or your wife, over the last little while? Give us a couple tips from the plate side of Skates and Plates.
Well, I did go, I wouldn't say unearthed because these aren't new spots, but I went for the first time in a long time to one of my favorite childhood spots. My opinion, the best burger in the city / surrounding area, and that's Sonia's out in Lockport.
Yes!
They might be the legitimate creator of the smash burger, because I found that they've almost been in business for 100 years. So historically, they might be able to lay claim to that. But I was just craving it for too long. And I basically just threw the family into the van and said, enough's enough. We got to get this done. So I was there, I think, last weekend, and it was exactly how I wanted it to be. So if you're looking for a new burger spot to throw into the rotation, Sonia's is an absolute must try, and then Half Moon is right there as well. And then outside of that, recently I went to Bluefish for the first time. Went there for the wife's birthday. Very nice. And then a couple sandwich spots, my go-tos, King and Ban, and then Hoagie Boys. So anytime I'm looking for a sandwich, those are my spots there. So no unearthing of gems per se, but some high-end food for sure.
Well, for a lot of people, Hoagie Boys is a revelation. I've had so many people since Hoagie Boys and our friends at the beer cannon next door have jumped on with us. And if you know Nick and the guys, I mean, they're absolute beauties. I knew of them from their wild Instagram posts for a long time. And then they opened up the shop at South Osborne. And I mean, those things are absolute masterpieces. But just on Sonia's, before we get to the hockey, I will say this. During the darkest times of COVID, where the bars weren't open, there were literally nothing was going on. You weren't allowed to have whatever the rules were. Couldn't have people over. Basically, I'd get to a Saturday afternoon and I'd be losing my mind, bored, and I would get into the car and I would just start driving. And one day I got to Henderson and I just kept driving and driving. And basically that's the route. If you get to Henderson Highway and just keep going until the end, you get to Sonia's stand. And there's that little hotel right there at the corner. It's basically, I guess, 44 is where Henderson meets.
Yeah.
I'd heard about Half Moon and been there before, and Skinner's, of course. I looked at this Sonia's place and I went in and without being tipped off at all, just kind of stumbled upon it. This place looks good. I'll try it. You are not joking. That burger, and I'm a huge Sal's guy. I mean, it is sort of, they got the fried onions like you would get on a Sal's burger. And I think they use like a cheese whiz sort of thing on that cheeseburger, and it makes it sort of like a melty. It's perfect.
It doesn't make sense. It shouldn't be as good as it is because like it's very simple. And if you get it with the works, it's just the grilled onions, cheese, a little bit of mustard, and a little bit of relish, and that's it. And normally, like that's not really my burger style. But it's just something. It's like the grill, something. I don't know what they do when they put it together. Like if it goes to Narnia, like I don't get it. It doesn't make sense. But it is the perfect burger, and it might be my best bite in the city / province, man. And going back there this weekend was just it was perfect. It was exactly how I remembered it. So yes, please, if you have it, you won't regret it for sure.
And not to mention, I mean, as great as the drive is and the burger is, you'll also get that 10 seconds of peace to yourself when you get out of the car, close the door, and take that very slow walk around the van before you open the door and the chaos happens again.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was going to say, you take a peek and there's like a little field there, and it's like, should I make a run for it? But then you totally, ignore that thought. You go back to normal. But yeah. Check it out. Please,
Phyllis just mentioned that hotel at the corner, like right beside Sonia's, that Lockport Hotel, has Chinese food there as well. I did notice the sign. I wasn't about to get any Chinese food there, but speaks highly of it. So for those of you in the Lockport area, you're lucky. You got a few gems right in and around it. All right. I could talk to you about burgers and food for another couple hours, but we'll do that off air. Let's get to this story. And I mean, listen, the story in hockey this week has been these offer sheets. What did you think? Like what you saw wait a second, what? A dual offer sheet from St. Louis to Edmonton? We don't see that very often. We get told every year it's coming, it's going to happen, and it doesn't. And then this year, no one says a damn thing, which if you like now looking, I feel like an idiot. Like, how did we not talk about how dangerous this was with the position Edmonton had put themselves in? But honestly, Brandon, for so many years, nothing's happened. It's sort of been like a gentleman's agreement was there. Well, maybe that changed when Ken Holland was said, thank you for your services. And all of a sudden, his old pal Army sticking it to the Oilers for Broberg and Holloway.
I like that. Going back to the Chicago-St. Louis rivalry, and he's like, hey, no love lost, baby. Broberg's coming our way. I mean, everybody always says this too after an offer sheet comes in or gets signed that, it's a big new wave. Everyone's going to do it every offseason. But like, just think of everything that had to kind of come together here for this to even be a possibility, right? Like, I mean, whether or not you believe in it, switching GMs and, a couple weeks after that, there's the immediate offer sheet thrown in there. But then you also have to have the players agree to sign the offer sheet and potentially go to your team. And then on top of that, you have to have all of your draft picks in line and in order, which the Blue, once there was that weird trade with Pittsburgh earlier in the day, it's like, that's random. Oh, wait, it's not actually random. It's the only reason why they were able to do this. So I don't think we're going to see, everybody kind of predicts it's going to happen again. I think it's just like a once in a 3-4 year thing where all the stars seem to align and you're able to kind of double dip on somebody like this. But look, this is for Oilers fans upset at the Blues in here. You should be upset in your own house because what did you expect was going to happen, right? Like you've set yourself up to be poached by other teams. And just because they're rare doesn't mean that they never happen. So I imagine at this point, unless they can pull some kind of a vanishing act with CC's cap hit and maybe one or two other guys, and maybe Kane goes to Robidas Island, I think they're going to lose Broberg at this point. I mean, I just don't know how you're able to fit, 4.8 in and try to field out the rest of your roster and potentially have cap space for the deadline when you want to make more additions. So I think at this point, you're kind of like what we saw a little over a decade ago when Chicago was forced into picking Chalmers or Niemi. You got to pick one of the two here. And I think even though Broberg has a lot more potential and prestige being a top 10 pick, it's just an extra $2 million for Edmonton is going to make a lot more sense for them at the deadline. So some pretty smooth work by Doug Armstrong. And I like to think that, with Alex Steen as the assistant, soon to be GM of the Blues, this was a case of the sensei saying, "Hey kid, check this out. This is how business gets done around here." So we'll see what the fallout's going to be. But if I had to make a prediction now, I think Broberg goes to St. Louis, and I think Edmonton keeps Holloway, and then there's going to need to be some trimming and some tinkering done on the back end, which had its fair share of, we'll call them question marks during the Stanley Cup run last year.
Well, listen, I mean, you mentioned the trade for the Pittsburgh St. Louis trade earlier on, and you're looking at this deal. It's like, wait a second. They just traded a second and a third for a second and a fifth, or a second and a sixth, whatever it was. This makes absolutely no sense. Why in the world would they be doing that? Well, we found out a little bit later. And I had speculated, as much as Doug Armstrong certainly got the deal done and they worked, I was wondering if the agents may have been working together. Now, Elliot Friedman did not allude to that at all. But, I mean, if you're the agent for these players and you're sitting there realizing that your RFAs, you don't have arbitration, and then they go out on July 1st and sign Arvidsson to $4 million. They bring Henrique back for $3.5 million. They sign Jeff Skinner to $3 million. They bring back Corey Perry. I mean, it doesn't take a math genius to add up the numbers and realize, well, what the hell are they going to have left for my client? And the fact that the ask for Broberg was 1.8 and the ask for Holloway was 1.2, and they ended up getting 4.58 and 2.3 basically, is, listen, the agents absolutely did their job. St. Louis was willing to pay the price to try to sort of, rebuild on the fly and take advantage of a situation. But you're exactly right. Like, they would not have needed to do this if they got this done during the year. Broberg was going to do it. That was the other thing that Elliot said. Like, they were going to kick this down the road. They were going to punt till the offseason because he was in Bakersfield most of the year anyways. I mean, it is a bit hilarious that he's going to be making 4.6 with 81 games in the National Hockey League. I mean, this is far from a proven NHL defenseman. But I'll tell you what, he looked pretty good through the playoffs, playing a pretty big role for Edmonton, and now he's getting rewarded from that. But you're exactly right. Like, they created this mess for themselves. They got way ahead of themselves. And maybe that's what happens when you're going in between general managers. I mean, they said, thanks, but no thanks, Ken. Your services aren't needed anymore. Jeff Jackson was handling it. I think they got a little too excited on the free agent market. And there's all sorts of mistakes that happen on July 1st. Usually we talk about the mistakes. Oh, Andrew Ladd, here's 7 years. Milan Lucic, James Neal, here's your 7-year deal that inevitably ends in a buyout. The other mistake that can be made is just not having a firm grasp of your cap, where you're going to be when you make all these decisions. And for a team that is pretty darn old, to be honest, losing even one of your top 2 young players, not a good thing moving forward. Like, does this really hurt them for this season? Probably not. But, I mean, they're not thinking that this is 1 year or bust, assuming that they're going to re-sign Draisaitl and McDavid.
Well, yeah, it's not catastrophic to their Stanley Cup hopes, but it is just, I mean, it's roster management 101. Like, stuff like this shouldn't happen. You shouldn't be that susceptible to an offer sheet for guys that are, currently depth players on your roster. And look, I kind of, it's a very not direct comparable to the Winnipeg Jets, but the Winnipeg Jets made a similar decision this offseason where could they have signed Brendan Dillon and kept him in the fold? For sure they could have, very easily. But they recognized that they had somebody, similar in their organization in Dylan Sandberg who could be ready to take a step up. And I think in terms of managing your roster, managing your cap, nobody could fault the Jets for making the decision to go from Dylan to Sandberg. And even in that case, right, it's like, how much of a drop-off is there really? Like, it's minimal either way, but you're saving a lot of real-life dollars on the salary cap. there's no reason that Edmonton couldn't have done a similar thing in moving on from Cody Ceci. And maybe, like, if they had done that earlier in the offseason, maybe even get some kind of a pick back for him, right? But, like, what's the drop-off between Ceci and Broberg? I don't know if there is one either way, Huss. You know what I mean? And you have the potential for a young guy to potentially blossom and be, well above what Ceci's currently giving you. Never mind what he might give you this upcoming season. So it's pretty shocking. It's tough to lay at Stan Bowman's feet because he's, just in the door, and then the offer sheet comes in like
not entirely Bowman's fault. I think we can safely say that. Like, you can get at him for a lot of things. This isn't on him, but he's got to be the one that figures out how they move through it. I think Jeff Jackson's back to meeting with season ticket holders now as the president.
Yeah. Especially after that, where it's like, that's the GM's job. I got no comment on that. So, yeah, it's, again, one of those things where it's not going to necessarily make or break Edmonton's cup run, but it's just it's almost like death by 1,000 paper cuts, right? Where, yes, in a vacuum, this one decision may not hurt them all that much, but they can compact and compound. And, all of a sudden it becomes a little bit tougher to kind of build the depths and the margins of your roster, especially when we all know things are going to be tight in Edmonton cap-wise this year. But then, I mean, good God, what Draisaitl and Bouchard get on their next deals. So again, pretty suave work from Doug Armstrong here to pluck at least one talented youngster out of Edmonton. Although I'll say this, Huss, Broberg at 4.5?
Yeah, 4.58.
That's a pretty absurd number. Like, there is no way, even if he was out on the open market, I don't think he gets 4.5. Like, as far as what he's done so far in the NHL, they're basically just, this was done specifically just to get him into St. Louis, because even though he showed okay in the postseason, I mean, if you look at some of his on-ice numbers, I think Skinner had like a .970 save percentage when he was on the ice. Funny how guys can look a lot better, Huss, when they've got a goalie stopping 97% of the shots when you're out there. So it's not like it's also a home run move from St. Louis in the sense of, we get a potential top pairing guy here. Like, it's going to be intriguing to see if he does go to the Blues, what his ceiling ultimately becomes this year.
Well, and you're exactly right. But I mean, St. Louis is a team. I mean, they've got $7 million in cap space. Their lineup is pretty much set right now for the upcoming season. They say, well, okay, well, listen, we've got this extra money. We can go in and get a couple of talented young players that's like 22 or 23 years old that we think's got a bright future. I mean, what's the cost of first-round picks? What's the cost of first-round picks that have been developed for a few years that are actually ready to play? I mean, that's significant. And we've obviously seen what St. Louis felt the price was worth for those guys to do it. If you bring Broberg in right now, St. Louis is in the Jets division, so we know them quite well. But I mean, Falk, Torrey Krug, Colton Parayko, Nick Leddy, all those guys over 30 years old. Oh, we can't forget that Ryan Suter's there now. He's 39 years old. And then, I mean, all these other guys, P.O. Joseph, Perunovic, I mean, are those guys going to be playing? I mean, who knows? Those are sort of those depth players that, in case of emergency, break glass and you might play a little bit. I mean, Broberg can walk in there and do that. And then on the other side, Cody Ceci's just 30 years old. And, he was playing with Nurse at times. Nurse was struggling. And, I mean, they were really under some heat. The other thing, though, is that he's one of only two right-shot defensemen on the Oilers. I mean, they might have Broberg playing on the off. Where are you at that? Where are you on that? Like, how important is handedness, in your opinion, Brandon, when it comes to defensemen?
I don't know what the level of importance I would put on it. I mean, for me, in an ideal world, you have the even left to right balance. Depends a little bit on who the player is. Like, for example, like Cody Ceci, I would not trust to play on his offside. Evan Bouchard, I would trust to play on his offside. So there is a little bit of nuance in there. I would just say ideally you would like the split there, but I'm not going to ice a less competitive, less talented roster just to have that in the fold. So I get ideally you want as many big righties as you can. They're difficult. They're rare to come up with. But, if I can get somebody that's 10% better and they can go to their offside and give me a little bit more than the guy that's there currently, I'll live with the trade-off there. So it's fair. It's fair for Edmonton to be concerned about that. But I think it's of more and of greater importance to be like, who's a bigger piece of our future, potentially even our present, Broberg or Ceci? And I think the answer to that one is pretty clear, to go along with the potential cap savings they would have had before the offer sheet came in.
The one thing that with hand in this, and I was never a person that really paid any attention to that for the most part. I think, as the Jets became legit contenders in 17, 18, you realized it more and I think we were just spoiled here in Winnipeg. I mean, when you've got Buff, Trouba, Tyler Myers as the right side of your defense, I mean, it was so good and so much better, frankly, than the rest of the league, because of those players were more at a premium that maybe we just didn't clue into here because of the riches they had on the right side. But man, I think about that series against Colorado, and one of the things that Colorado did so well, and this comes down to scouting, pro scouting, coaching, the amount of times that when the Jets had, like, for instance, there was a time I think when Dylan Sandberg was out with Stanley, and they'd identify that two lefty guys, one of the guys on the wrong side. It was every single time they were putting it into that corner where the defenseman was on their backhand. They were faster than the Jets. They were all over him. And that started, I mean, we remember how tough the time the Jets had just clearing the puck out of their own end, and comfortability for your defenseman in that area seemed to be, just part of a number of things that were not going the Winnipeg Jets' way. So, and the funny thing is, if they did do something with Ceci, Bouchard becomes the only righty on the Edmonton blue line. One of the other things, and we'll bring this back to the Jets for a minute, because the way we're looking at the blue line shaking up right now, I mean, unless something happens, it's going to be Morrissey and DeMello. They'll be having the big minutes. It looks like Dylan Sandberg's going to be moving up to top 4, presumably, I guess, with Neil Pionk. I'm not sure how different Pionk's situation is going to be at the start of the year. It is a contract year for him. And you know what I said last year, Brandon, around this time, if there's one guy that if he personally can have a bounce back season and play much better, it'll help the team in such a big way, was Pionk, just because of the amount of time that he was on the ice. And I really thought he did that for about the first 50 games or so of the season. It wasn't the case at the end. It certainly wasn't the case in the playoffs. And that's why he's such a big question mark right now moving forward. But Colin Miller, the reacquisition of Colin Miller, and listen, we didn't see him a lot when he was acquired. He kind of got into the playoffs when it was too late. But I'm intrigued as to Miller's role with the club, not only playing a regular shift on the right side as a right shot defenseman, but the one thing we heard and we know that he's got is a world-class bomb from the point. And I would actually like to see him maybe get a little bit of an opportunity even on the second power play or something like that. Because the one thing, and part of the reason why everyone, well, not everyone, but many of us are so intrigued at the possibility of bringing Laine back, is that massive shot, both regularly and on the power play, has been missing for the Winnipeg Jets. And I think that's been just a part of the inefficiency they've had with the man advantage, which we know is so important. I mean, Rick Bowness said it himself, if our power play was league average last year, we might be talking about a President's Trophy banner.
Yeah, and part of that's the number one unit, part of that's the second unit. So I've always like the Miller acquisition at the deadline, and I was just surprised that the Jets were able to get him back into the fold here. But I guess, basically guaranteeing him a top 6 spot was, went a long way in doing that. I guess I don't know, for me, and it's interesting timing too, because on Skates and Plates, we're doing our ranking series, and it's defensemen this week, and just going to the different blue lines league wide and stuff like that. I still think it was a missed opportunity for the Jets not to go after an impact defenseman this offseason. because with how Josh Morrissey has elevated his game to, in my opinion, a borderline top 5 defenseman in the NHL, and DeMello is as steady as it gets, to have somebody behind him that you can no doubt about it trust for 82 games straight to give you 23, 24 minutes a night, it really could have elevated this blue line into one of the more formidable units in the NHL. Because I agree with you in that, if it's, for example, if it's Heinola Miller on that third pair, I'd put that one up there against just about any other third pair in the NHL. So I'm intrigued to see how it plays out this year. I'm intrigued to see, depending on where the team is at the deadline, if there's a blue liner that's available that could be a target for Winnipeg. I'm kind of, I'm not going to watch too many of their games because they suck, but I'm kind of intrigued about Rasmus Anderson's situation with the Flames, who was kind of like maybe sort of on the trade market this past year. I mean, they've obviously committed to the rebuild. He's only got a year or two left on his deal. It's at a really reasonable cap hit too. I that might be my dream scenario, is that he becomes available in the purge for the Flames, and that could be somebody that Winnipeg could go after to go behind Morrissey on pair number 2. But as it stands right now, the Jets, management, coaching, for whatever reason, they're putting basically all their faith in this blue line being good, because Neil Pionk is going to have a bounce back season. They've believed in him more than anybody else these past couple of years, and it's not going to, the entire season hinges on how well he plays, but it could be the difference between a home playoff date and being a bubble team this year. So I feel like when I look at the Jets blue line, Huss, I feel great about pairs 1 and 3, but there's no doubt the biggest question mark on this team right now is how that second pair ends up playing, because they're going to be playing 18, 19, 20, 21 minutes a night.
Well, and I'll say this. I mean, on the left side, Dylan Sandberg, there's not a proven top 4 defenseman yet at this point. And, to have someone that might be able to help his transition. And I'm not saying that Pionk isn't able to do that. I mean, again, I know he gets a ton of heat. At times he's played at a high level. It just hasn't been consistent enough. And when he gets into having difficulties, it can really stretch for a long time, and it can be disastrous. But a massive challenge for Sandberg, for him moving forward to sort of establish himself as a legit top 4 guy. And, when you look at his contract, this is the year to do it, because he's going to be playing more minutes. He's got an expiring contract. He's arbitration eligible. Huge opportunity for Dylan to establish himself and maybe cash in, as a reliable top 4 guy that has major value in the NHL when he re-ups the following year.
Yeah, it's not a guarantee of high-end performance, but if you're going to have question marks, it's almost better to have question marks on guys going into a contract year, because at the very least, motivation will not be a concern on how well or how poorly they play. Both of those guys it might be for both of them their last chance at a really big payday, even though Sandberg's a few years younger than Pionk, right? Ironically, I think Dylan Sandberg's best run in the NHL probably came beside Neil Pionk. I don't even know if it was his rookie season, if it was considered that, because he only played, a handful of games. But there was a stint a few years back, Huss, where because of injuries, Sandberg had to jump up into the top 4, and he played beside Neil Pionk, and they both looked really, really good. So maybe, who knows, maybe Winnipeg has a sixth sense about these two being a lot better than a lot of people are giving them credit for. But it's a big hole. It's the biggest hole that this team has right now. And I still truly feel, I just can't imagine at this point, even though we saw the Blues make a big move here, I can't imagine a move is going to be made from Winnipeg's side of things. But man, if they could have went after somebody this offseason, lefty or righty, that they could have felt good about putting on that second pair, I think Winnipeg would have been right there with the Dallases and the Colorados in the Central, and maybe not too far off with the best of the Pacific either. So we'll have to wait and see to see if Chevy's big gamble of Sandberg Pionk is going to pay off, and probably get an answer to that in the first 20 or so games.
Well, I don't doubt that they probably worked hard to try to maybe add to that blue line. Sometimes things are easier said than done. there still are teams, Edmonton being one of them, that may have to, listen, would you rather have Cody Ceci than Neil Pionk as your second pairing along with Dylan Sandberg?
I'd rather have Pionk for sure, yeah, than Ceci.
Oh, okay. So there you go. So, I mean, those are the sort of guys that might be out and be available. I'm looking at the Caps right now.
Well,
the Caps projected cap space is over $10 million in the negative. Now they've got $14 million in Oshie and Backstrom. They'll be on LTIR. And of course they spent a ton of money. I mean, bringing in, I keep forgetting PLDs on the Caps. Like Dubois is playing for the Capitals, and they signed Matt Roy to almost a $6 million deal as well on the right side. So, I mean, there may be some moves there. And then there's a bunch of other teams that are right in and around it. I don't doubt that there might be some more periphery of the lineup movement in and around training camp and whatnot. But it looks like they're going to give these guys a run, see what they can do. And again, I'm sort of with you. I mean, intrigued to see, the battle with Villy and Stan for a spot on that third pairing, who's in the lineup, who's out of the lineup right off the bat. Of course, Colin Miller in that spot. And do they move Villy at any point and give him some time on the right side, which he has played in the past, potentially if they want to have both Heinola and Stanley, which is a hilarious pairing when you think about it. I mean, it's like this is when Remus would come in. It's like the old Nintendo ice hockey. You got the big guy, the small guy. That's the way you build the lineup. His old Nintendo ice hockey plan as well. Hey, listen, B, great chat as always. Next week, in addition to looking ahead to a training camp and whatnot, we'll have to get your thoughts on the upcoming NFL season, which is just around the corner. Man, poor Viking fans.
I got some takes, man. I got some takes.
Is there a more cursed fan base than the Vikings? I'm sure there'd be some others. JJ, I watched that exhibition game on the weekend. I'm like, oh my God, this guy looks good. With this receiving core, are you kidding me? And then he's out for the year. Right after I put a little sprinkle on him as offensive rookie of the year. That's on me. That's on me. Sorry, JJ.
I was gonna say, yeah.
Hey, let me know when you're up for a ride out to Sonia's stand. I'm in. We'll talk to you soon, buddy. Thanks again for doing this.
Yeah, the show's done at 3, so just come pick me up on the way out here and we'll get it done.
Done deal. I'm starving. All right, there's Brandon Rewucki. Check out Skates and Plates wherever you get your favorite podcasts as well. We are going to talk about the first place fish coming up with the play-by-play voice, Trevor Curl. Quickly before that, a big cheers to our friends at Little Brown Jug.
You train day in and day out, learning new techniques, approaching new concepts, and living out the thrill of achieving your goals. Building a craft beer is no different. While you spend your hours on the ice, we spend ours here, brewing our trademark beer. Again, and again. Here's to pushing the status quo and challenging ourselves to build something memorable. 1919 by Little Brown Jug.
I was hoping for a couple 1919s and generics at the ballpark tonight. That is not going to happen, unfortunately, but the Fish are in first place. We're going to get to that right away. But as you just heard, as we were talking about burgers and food, Brandon mentioned Hoagie Boys. If you're a sandwich guy and you have not yet been to Hoagie Boys, you're missing out, gang. Get down to their spot on South Osborne for the best, biggest, most badass sandwiches around. You will not be disappointed. I guarantee you that. Now open 7 days a week from 11:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. Pop in, try them all. And if you are heading out, I've told people before, I've got some friends that do this, heading out for a beach day for the afternoon, pop by Hoagie Boys, get a couple of those guys. They're massive. Cut them up into, some smaller segments. Nibble on those throughout the day while you're enjoying a beach day. There's nothing better. And of course, the brains behind the Hoagie Boys are the Cosmos Food Cantina fellas. They're also serving up incredible food at the beer can. Not a great beer can day today with the rain, but it'll be back on the weekend. And of course, next door at 116 Sherbrooke, heart of Wolseley, just next to Good Neighbor Brewing. Pop by any of those 3 spots and tell them the boys at WST sent you. Well, we were just talking hockey, and believe it or not, hockey is just around the corner. Training camp next week for the National Hockey Leaguers, but minor hockey getting going even earlier than that. And that means new equipment and getting ready for the upcoming season. And there's only one place to do that. That, of course, is Royal Sports at 750 Pembina Highway, the #1 hockey superstore in town, locally and family owned for over 40 years. Whether you're needing skates, the best selection of sticks, every piece of equipment you could possibly need, everything for goalies, and all the new stuff from all the top companies coming in by the day. It's all at Royal Sports at 750 Pembina Highway. Get ready to drop the puck with Royal. Open 7 days a week at 750 Pembina Highway, and make sure to follow them on Instagram at Royal Sports Pembina for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. And of course, well, no ball game tonight, so I guess we're going to have to do it indoors, and maybe that means a trip down to Boston Pizza. We got a pretty neat game in the Canadian Football League between Ottawa and Calgary, the return of Jeremiah Masoli. Listen, when you want to watch the big game on the big screen, there's nowhere better to do it than your local Boston Pizza. Ice cold schooners, world famous BP wings, gourmet pizzas, and more. And hey, if you are staying at home, you can always get the great taste of Boston Pizza by ordering online at bostonpizza.com. All right, well, even with the rain out tonight, there is still a lot to talk about with the local ball club. The Winnipeg Goldeyes have just been on an absolute tear as of late and have pushed from a big deficit towards the bottom of the division into the #1 team in the loop. And to join us to talk about our first time on Winnipeg Sports Talk, it's a pleasure to welcome in the play-by-play voice of the Winnipeg Goldeyes. You can hear every broadcast on CJNU, Trevor Curl. Trevor, what's up? Welcome to WST. It's great to have you on the show.
Oh, thanks, Andrew. Thanks for having me. This is a special time of the season right now for the Goldeyes, and a special time for me getting a chance to get a broadcast a team that's really into a playoff push for the moment.
You know what? Just before we get to the team and everything that's happened, listen, I have to mention, I've mentioned this to Andrew Collier, a good friend, many times, just how impressed I've been with your calls this year, as well as some of the videos you've been doing on the road setting up. How was your first year in Winnipeg? And give us a little bit about your background, how you ended up here in the Peg calling fish games.
So, yeah, well, I don't even know where to begin. First of all, Winnipeg's a great baseball city right now. I know everyone's excited because of the Blue Bombers, the Jets, whatnot. I just went to my two or three. I went to 3 NHL games as soon as I got in town. So I got in town right about the time of the Masters tournament for golf at the middle of April. So had a little bit of time to kill before the season started. And I was able to get up into the box, and my local team, the Kraken, were in town. So I got to see the Kraken play the Jets at the end of the season. And then I went to 2 playoff games. First of all, what an atmosphere that is. Playoff hockey is unlike anything else. I've been to a playoff baseball game. It's definitely up there with the experience. Loved the True North chant at the beginning of the national anthem before puck drop. That made things just kind of take it to a whole nother level. But then after that, just going right into baseball, going right into the season, and knowing that we're going to start on the road, knowing that we're going to need to go all the way down to Texas and just battle against 2 of the better clubs, at least at the beginning of the season. And it was going to be a little bit of an uphill battle for kind of all of us. For me, first-year broadcaster in professional baseball. Logan Watkins, first-year manager with the Goldeyes. A lot of these other players may have never been in the American Association at some point. So it was kind of an interesting spot for us. But I'm glad the guys have been able to come together and just find a way to get the job done over the last couple of months. And at the beginning of things were definitely looking not as promising as we think we were going to get at the beginning of the season. Pitching has still been so solid. That 3-7 start line, I don't like to use that as much as I need to, because it takes away from how well this ball club has played over the last couple of months. But I mean, 3-7 to start the season off, make your comeback within the first half of play, and then just find a couple of big win streaks along the way. It's a special group of guys right now, and just talking with some of the guys who have seen this Goldeyes team of the past, raise a trophy at the end of the season. There's a lot of high hopes right now from all those guys who've seen us like to be a part of the winning culture.
You mentioned you're from the Pacific Northwest around Seattle. How did the Goldeyes and the gig even come on your radar? And had you been doing play-by-play beforehand, or this was always trying to get an opportunity to do it on a daily basis because you've been killing it?
Thank you. Yeah, so everything got started out right as I was done playing collegiate baseball, played NAIA, played junior college, and after my senior season, I knew that I wanted to go into broadcasting. I knew that I wanted to get into the industry somewhere. So in 2022, my first job was a play-by-play for this team called the Swepsonville Sweepers in Swepsonville, North Carolina, which is a small league at the time. It's called the Old North State League. And the guys who run it there are absolutely incredible. It's a great league for NAIA players, Division III players, at least when I was there. Now it's starting to get even bigger. I think when I started there was, maybe 8 to 12 teams. It's now all the way up to a 16-league team for summer ball, which is fantastic. But it was me by myself in the swamps of North Carolina, just sitting on the very back of the bleachers of this just big old sand lot, essentially, of the field. If you look on some of my old videos on Twitter, I kind of see my setup, and it was a little rickety. But I was just basically talking into it on my phone, and it had a couple of good games there. It's about 20-plus game season, so it's not a whole lot, but it's enough to get a first-timer through the door without a whole lot of ramifications. So a whole lot of risks that I was able to take, see if someone would figure out. If it didn't, oh well, I'd go on to the next day. After that off season, I went to look for help from some old broadcasting mentors. So Mike Monaco, who's with ESPN, Chris Fosters, who's now the voice of the Chicago Blackhawks. Both were very adamant on me going to the winter meetings in San Diego for 22. And I flew into town, spent 4 days in San Diego. I probably only had like $400 to my name now at this point. Living still at home, but now really starting to financially become on my own. So everything was out of my own pocket, and I took a big risk doing this. And not really knowing what to get into, because no one really knows what happens at the winter meetings unless you've been there before. I go into this baseball workshop. I go there, and I just end up meeting a whole bunch of people in baseball. None of them were really helpful on broadcasting wise. They were all there for more scouting, for more analytics, for more kind of anything else other than broadcasting. So I ended up finding the American Association table because the St. Paul Saints table. They told me to go check out the American Association because they're always looking for possible new hires, or new teams are looking for broadcasters. I go over there, I meet Buckles, who's the deputy commissioner, and he asked me if I was looking for a job that summer. I told him I was already going to go up to upstate New York for the Perfect Game Collegiate Baseball League. Told me to keep my name in, or keep his contact card in my wallet. It was in my wallet for a little over a year and a half. In the summer, right at the end of the season in September, I ended up reaching out to Buckles, sent him an email, sent him my tapes, sent him my resume, and then 2 days later, the guy who's in the office right next door to me right now, Sam Cates, emails me. And at first, I was so looking to get a possible job in the affiliated ranks, because I think broadcasters are trying to do whatever it takes, get to that next level. I think there's a lot of people, even the players involved too, are maybe a little bit on the American Association. I know it's great, but I want to see what could happen. And I cannot believe that I didn't answer the phone right away and hurry to get an email back to Sam. And I think at the beginning, when I told Sam that, I think I'm going to wait a couple of weeks just to see what the options are like. I think I woke up in a sweat the next night, just in a pure panic, thinking, what the heck did I just do? Did I just absolutely mess up an opportunity to get something through the door? Luckily, Sam was really on the high note because of the Arizona Diamondbacks being in the World Series. So I kind of played that card a little bit, especially the Corbin Carroll card, because he grew up not too far away from where I grew up too. So we both I was like, hey, your right fielder's helping you a World Series ring. How about you get a guy from Washington who could be in your broadcast booth as well? And luckily, Sam has taken a risk, and I'm really happy for what's happened, not just for my career so far, but what's going on with the Goldeyes right now.
Well, you're here at a great time at a really exciting season. I can tell you, Manny Fran, a lot of the WSDers giving a lot of love to the calls that we've been hearing all season long for the Goldeyes, and I've loved, as I said, some of the things that you've done, setting up series, with some videos and stuff on the road. Great way to stay connected to the team. And how about this team? You mentioned that start, 0-4 early, 3-7, and we talked to Logan, the new manager, a few times heading into the season, and it was a huge start for him because he was going against the place where he had just brought this team to the playoffs and was let go because of new ownership. And he knew it was going to be a very, very tough start. And it was for the Goldeyes, but he kind of called that. He knew that this would be a process. So many new guys coming from elsewhere to put him in. But he really did believe in the talent that he had put together on this club. And we've seen that grow throughout the year. You could tell me better. I'm pretty sure I was at a game, I want to say about a month and a half ago, and looking at the ballpark in the standings when you come in, and I think the Fish were in 5th and 9.5 back out of 1st. And we're talking today with a team that is 2 games clear of Sioux Falls, and that's not going to change because of the rain out tonight. And you dive into this club, and again, I know you're here in your first year. This team goes back over a quarter century. I would be shocked if this isn't the best pitching group we have ever had in Winnipeg, top to bottom, from the pitchers, just the starters. Never mind before we get to the relievers, and on top of that, the guy that spun another beauty last night, Joey Matalovich, authoring one of the greatest pitching seasons in Goldeyes history. For folks that maybe haven't been following the team, can you put into words just how impressive this group of hurlers has been for Logan Watkins' club, and how key they've been to keeping the Goldeyes in games when the bats weren't going all year long, and now making them the first place team, and a team that is going to be a real tough out in a series come playoff baseball?
Well, first of all, Joey Matulovich might be one of the best human beings who I've gotten a chance to be around. Joey and I, after we get back on road trips, bus, we walk together from the bus back to the hotel. That got started after the first road trip of the season. Once we finally got back home, Joey and I started walking back to the hotel, and I was able to just talk with him, kind of learn a little bit about his personal life a little more. Something we talked about in the off season for the Inside Pitch, the preseason show. I was very, very hesitant on Joey at first because I didn't exactly know what kind of person we were going to get with him. But just from hearing him talk and hearing him, the way he carries himself, the way he talks about his teammates, Joey is just one of the best gentlemen who I've been able to be around. He's so his personality just rubs off on everyone. He's so positive, the way he talks, not just about himself, but the way he talks about other people. Yesterday was an absolute gem. 7 innings, 1 hit. What was it? Striking out 7, maybe? I don't have the exact number. But it was another fantastic gem from him. We've just seen that time and time again. Every 5th day when Joey takes the mound, you have a feeling that something special is going to happen that night. Landon Barraza was supposed to go today. Another kind of lights out guy who hasn't been getting a whole lot of swing and miss as of late, like he did at the beginning of the season, but he's just got comfortable with pitching right after Joey and just being that guy in the rotation that it doesn't get any easier after Joey. Just you go to another guy. Zach Reininger's got some big league time. He's someone who's really been a big voice for this pitching staff and a big voice in this clubhouse, and that goes a long way. Travis Seabrook, again, has been solid. The bullpen is just freaking lights out with Nick Trogelik-Iverson throwing bullets in. Ben Anishko, who is someone who I was a little bit hesitant to see it as well. Lefty thumbers out of the bullpen. I think there's always sometimes a little bit of a step back when you think about a lefty thumber because you don't know how effective they are. I don't think he's really much of a thumber. He just goes right after guys with that fastball changeup. Will throw in the sweeper and just get right-handers to look foolish on anything that's going from the outside corner to the inside corner. But one thing that really also needs to get talked about is the walk numbers. Right now, they're at 197 walks. They are on pace to break that walk record of 227 that was set by the 2018 Gary South Shore Railcats. That's absolutely incredible. A team that just consistently is so stubborn to not walk. And you look around every other team in this league, and especially we were just on our last road trip in Lake Country, and you kind of saw the shift of what happens when you walk too many guys. Those walks eventually turn into runs. And what the Goldeyes pitching staff has been able to do right now has been limit the amount of easy passes on base, limit the easy walk, eliminate the hit by pitches, be right in the zone, fill it up, go right after guys. If they hit you, they hit you. And we saw at the beginning of the season, got a little home run happy, laying a couple of extra fastballs out over the plate. But you know what? Logan Watkins has said it best. It's a great problem to have, the 3 strikes. And right now, when you just look at this pitching staff right now, 1, 2, 3 in a playoff series, and then if any one of those guys maybe not have their best start at the beginning of the postseason, here comes the bullpen. Here comes Nick for 3 innings. Here comes Ryder Yakel out of the bullpen, a huge pivot guy. Man, that fastball just obliterates guys. You know it's coming, and they still are having trouble picking it up. So, and that also goes into what Rob Emery and Kevin Garcia, 2 catchers, have been able to do. They've been able to work with these pitchers from the very beginning. It's nice to also see 4 University of San Francisco guys joining in and being big contributors as well. It kind of feels like we're the Winnipeg Dons now at this point because of how many San Francisco alumni are here.
Well, I mean, the pitching, and just a quick nod to Anishko, who's a local product. He's been in 22 games. He has a .52 ERA, and you mentioned those pitching numbers. I mean, just for the Goldeyes staff overall, you mentioned that 197 walks, 659 strikeouts. The numbers speak for themselves, and now the record in the standings speaks for itself as well. And then when it comes to hitting, I mean, 5 regulars now over 300. Dason Crow's leading the way at 330 as well. Max Murphy, a legend here in Winnipeg with the 2 bombs last night, getting his going. I mean, they've got the bats as well. I want to ask you though, because you're with the team on the road each and every day, with the club. Logan Watkins is such an interesting guy, and we've had some great conversation with him on the show when he first got the job throughout the year. What have you learned about Logan and the way he's put this team together, the way he manages, and how important has his leadership been in turning this season around and getting to where they are today?
Oh, first of all, to go back to that hitting core right now, Dason Cruz has had a little scuffle at the road trip that we just had in Lincoln Lake Country. He's starting to feel it again. He's starting to feel the stride. Miles Symington is someone who, man, if he didn't get that fastball up and inside, I think it's someone who could be a sleeper pick for Player of the Year right now, just because of what he's doing offensively with the bat, with the glove, just how the way he plays the game, the way he goes about his business. Robbie Enriquez is someone who has stepped up in a huge way, especially at the end of June and July, having one of the best Julys on this ball club, if not the best July. Max Murphy is finding his power swing again. And even if he wasn't contributing to the Max Murphy that you are used to seeing, his B effort is still 280, hitting 90 base hits, still popping 20 doubles, 9 to 10 home runs. Now he's all the way up to 15, I think. It's great to see this lineup start to really take its shape. Rob Emery, we talked about him earlier, being a huge pickup. Someone on this roster who, in my opinion, who has been very underlooked right now is Roman Brasco at the top of the order. A guy who doesn't panic with 2 strikes, a guy who earns his walk. It doesn't matter kind of what at-bat it is. He's going to get a pitcher to work deep into a count, and he spits on a couple of really good change-ups from some guy. Switch hitter as well, so he's not going to be overmatched. He's not exactly a veteran, but the way he goes about his business, especially as a hitter, he's very, very, very patient in the box, a very veteran mindset. Andy Armstrong, when he swings the bat, is just a plus because of how awesome his defense is. I can't tell you how many times my jaw is down on the floor just watching him do what he does at shortstop. And then Nick Anderson coming in, being a little bit of help at the end of the season when his bat gets going. That's a scary part of the order. And then Jake McMurray as well, anchoring first base, such a huge help to your infield. You already have a pretty darn good infield. Then you have someone who's digging stuff up on the back end, just making things so much easier. That helps. But then going back to, he worked so hard in the offseason to get this team where it's at right now. There's just so much underlooked effort that you just don't see until you get these guys here. You get guys like Rob Emery, who help bring in guys like Justin Courtney, who help bring in guys like Ramon Rowsko, who help bring in those Joey Steeles and Thomas Ponticellis. Then it's also the stuff that he does at the field, before the game, after the game, the way he talks to his players. Being as young as he is, he's recently out of the game as a player, but he's still so mentally involved in it because he was just so recently a player. So the way he understands when a player might be struggling, or he knows it takes time and it takes timing and it takes maybe one swing to get him back. What also helps about Logan being Logan is the way he's able to just kind of control the ball club. He doesn't really buy in to the if something's not going our way, hell's breaking loose and we're all going to panic. He's so calm. And even at that 3-7 start to the season, it seemed like anytime I went into the manager's office after the game to talk about it, he said, well, they had to do everything they can to beat us that day. And we've said that a couple of times. Where it's like, you know what? Yeah, we did lose, but I'm glad we did because they had to throw every single one of their high leverage guys in the bullpen against us. And then it goes also down to when things are going well. He's the same guy every single day if we're losing in the 8th inning. He's the same guy if we're winning 10-0 in the first 2 innings. He's so calm, the way he goes about his business, the way he's able to talk to players, the way players are so comfortable being around him, the way the players are also comfortable being themselves. Logan's out there taking ground balls with those infielders prior to the ball game. He's hitting maybe a couple of fungos every now and then, but Zach Reidinger, who's our starting pitcher, once every 5 days, he's hitting the ground balls. Logan's out there taking ground balls, flipping them to Andy Armstrong's doing behind the back flips with his glove. Ramon Bromalsko, Keyshawn Lynch, Dason Cruz, Jake McMurray, Robbie Enriquez, all these guys are having so much fun prior to batting practice that it's something that fans don't get a chance to see until they step into the field. Then you see how well this team is run, how well they are able to just go out there and just get the job done. Like, so what? You're down. You get a couple of balls that don't get called your way. So what? You still got to hit. You still got to hit with 2 strikes. You still got to find a way to get the job done. And Logan's just been so important to this lineup and this roster that it's just sometimes I feel like when you have a manager who is so hands-off, they don't really get the recognition they deserve because they're not calling a whole bunch of signs. They're not forcing a player to do something. It's all the guys on the field who know the situation. And that's also what's so important is having guys with such good high baseball IQ and they know exactly what they need to do in a certain spot.
Trevor, man, great chat. I can't wait for the weekend. Bummed that we don't have a game tonight, but you guys all need a day off every now and then. Those don't come around very often in the pack schedule. Folks, 2 cities in. The first place Goldeyes back in action tomorrow. Friday night is the Manitoba Social Night. Fireworks at the end of the game. First 1,000 fans, the Fred Penner bobblehead. And then get ready for the dogs on Saturday. The annual Bark at the Park with the Pooch picture jersey the team is going to be wearing. And then finishing it off on Sunday afternoon. Trevor, thanks so much for coming on. I have loved the calls. You're getting a lot of love from everybody in the chat. Good luck to the squad on the weekend. On that final road trip, we'll see you and the Fish back here in Winnipeg for that final week of the season through Labor Day weekend. And then fingers crossed, some playoff baseball at Blue Cross Park coming up at the beginning of September. Enjoy the evening, the unplanned night off, and we'll see you at the park on the weekend.
Yeah, thanks. No kidding. One more quick quote on that. So for that Bark in the Park jersey, there's 2 very special animals that I'm seeing on that jersey. So first of all, one of them, right, like I don't know where it is, but Rob Emery, our catcher, has his dog on the jersey there. And then I think it's on the right sleeve. I have my dog on that sleeve as well. And then, of course, I was asking Jason about this earlier, but I think we might need to throw a couple of geese on there after last night's little fiasco there.
We talked about the geese thing at the beginning of the program and played that. It's up on the Twitter feed. That was quintessential vintage excellence in making the best out of an unfortunate situation. And listen, you'll have that call to throw in the resume as well. Though hopefully you'll stick around for a while in Winnipeg because you're doing a great job. Have an awesome night tonight. Thanks again for coming on.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks for having me.
There's Trevor Curl. You can hear his calls nightly for Goldeyes baseball, of course, over on CJNU. Great stuff with Trevor. And again, no game tonight. The game is canceled. It will not be made up because the teams don't play again this year. Fish back in action tomorrow, finishing off this homestand through the weekend against Sioux City, looking to extend their lead atop the division in the American Association. Of course, Goldeyes tickets are available at goldeyes.com. You can give them a call at 982-BASE. And, of course, that final week coming up, more games. The promo schedule is up on the website as well. But good things happening down at the ballpark. And if you haven't been there, you should get there as well. I do got to shout out our friends at Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge. Great support of ours since day one. I am still glowing from the great few days we had there a couple weeks ago. I'm looking forward to next season. If you're thinking about a world-class fly-in fishing destination where you can be on the water in less than 2 hours from the city of Winnipeg, Aikens Lake is the spot. Find out more online at aikenslake.com. Might even be able to squeeze in a September trip, but booking well into 2025 right now at beautiful Aikens Lake. Great night last night of racing down into Assiniboia Downs. Ended up being a lot nicer than I think everyone expected. Unfortunately, that rain got in today and cost us that ball game. But they're back at it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Now the regular schedule is resumed. We'll have a few extra race days in September, which I'm looking forward to. Free parking, free admission, every night of live racing. And they're back at it on Monday, 7:30 post time, assiniboiadowns.com for all the information on everything going on throughout the year at the track. Quick Breezy Bend golf update for our friends at Breezy Bend. Looking forward to being a part of their member guest tournament on Sunday, along with Jets general manager Kevin Cheveldayoff. And leading into our Cool Bet segment, this is perfect. Taylor Pendrith, one shot off the lead. Pendy, great start. He's at 5 under, along with Matthew Pavon, one back of Chris Kirk with a 64. Justin Rose and Ben Griffin, Tommy Fleetwood, and look out now. Here comes Scotty Scheffler. He's 4 under through 10. The Canadians are the key, though, right now to see who will be able to move on. Nick Taylor's actually in the top 20. Taylor has really struggled the last couple months. He's not only fighting to keep on playing in the Tour Championship, but also to make the President's Cup team, which he looked like he was a lock for earlier this year. So Taylor's at -2 right now. We've also got Corey Connors, who's 1 under through 15 today. Mac Hughes finished even. And Adam Hadwin, who is just on the outside of the top 30 right now. He was 1 over today for his round. Big thanks to Breezy Bend. If you're looking for an incredible long-term home for you and your family on the golf course at one of Winnipeg's top private courses, give them a call. Talk to our pal Corey Johnson. He'll fill you in on the 2025 season, or find out more at breezybend.ca. All right, just before we go to the Cool Bet lines, let's get Connor back in here. And Connor, not only helping us with so many things at WST, a jack of all trades. You've been around the ball team all year long, and we've talked about it a little bit off the top, but it has been really cool to see the way this team has come together under Logan Watkins. And you want to talk about playing your best baseball at the best time of year. This is the team, Connor, they'll beat you 1-0, no problem, or go 14-12 like they did at the end of that last road trip. Finding a ways to win, and winning begets winning, and they've been doing a lot of it for the last number of weeks.
Yeah, and I was working with the Goldeyes last year as well, and at the start of this year, when they started off slow, there was a lot of like, oh, here we go again. It's going to be another rough year. But no, they've completely turned it around. And like you said, the ability to win every type of game, that's something we talk about in hockey and football. There's different types of games, and the Goldeyes have shown that they can beat you 1-0. And even earlier in the year, Landon Barassa lost like 3 times 1-0 when the bats weren't supporting him that much. But this week they won 13-6 against the Sioux Falls Canaries in the first game, and then 7-0 in the second game because the pitching was just so great. And I know you did put up 7 runs in that second game, but if the other team gets a goose egg, you really only need 1 run. So that's just like these last 2 games show how they've got that ability when their bats are alive, and Max Murphy's hitting 3 home runs over 2 games. They can hit with the best teams in the league, and no one can stack up to their pitching. And when their bats are giving their pitchers and Joey Matulovic and Landon Barassa and Travis Seabrook some run support, they might be the best team in the American Association. And ever since that slow start where everyone was maybe rolling their eyes and going, oh my goodness, this is a repeat of last year, new manager, we're not really sure, Logan has completely turned things around, and this team is clicking on all cylinders at the right time in the middle of August with playoff baseball just 2-3 weeks away.
Yeah, and you mentioned Barassa. I mean, he's 7-4. I think he has 3 1-0 losses this year.
Yeah.
One of them was the game that we were at, and we mentioned how the games are quicker, with the pitch clock. I texted Andrew after we had our WST night there and said, "Is that the fastest game in Goldeyes history?" I mean, it was 1 hour and 50 minutes. I mean, it just absolutely flew by. Obviously, when there's a few more runs, it'll take a little longer, and hopefully the bats will be going on the weekend. But great season so far. Big weekend coming up for the Goldeyes. So if you are in town, make a point to getting out there. I think tomorrow will be real fun with the Manitoba Social Night, and of course the Bark in the Park, one of the best events of the entire year. All right, let's get to our Coolbet lines for today, because we are not going to be at the ballpark. That'll give us more time to watch the Canadian Football League. And Connor, I'll bring you back in a second and get your thoughts on these games. But this game, it was funny. We were doing the lock shop today, and the line in Ottawa and Calgary had gone to Calgary 3.5. It was actually 4 earlier this morning. It settled at 3, and I think that's probably where it should be. I'm taking Calgary, and I've said this for the last couple weeks. Until anything changes, I will back Calgary at home, and I will fade them on the road. They're perfect at home. They are winless on the road. We'll see whether that continues tonight. Jeremiah Masoli, though, back with his first start in forever in the Canadian Football League. Ottawa's plus 138 to win. Calgary's minus 164. And the Stamps are a 3-point favorite. We've had some more line movement in this Montreal-Saskatchewan game, and it's strange because the Alouettes put out their lineup. Cody Fajardo's on it, but he's not starting. He's dressing as the backup, which really sucks. If he can play, let's play him against the Riders in Regina. Come on. But maybe they think that he's still going to start or play, because when we did the lock shop, the Riders were 1-point favorite. The Alouettes are now 1-point favorite. So this line has moved 2.5 points over the course of the last 2 hours or so. Montreal, the favorite at minus 123, and Saskatchewan is plus 103 to win on the money line. Trevor Harris is back for Saskatchewan. The Elks are 1.5-point favorites in Hamilton against the Ticats. Looks like it'll be MBT for Edmonton, and Taylor Powell in the place of Bo Levi Mitchell starting for the Ticats. Ticats plus 117 on the money line. The Elks minus 143. And the line keeps on growing for the BC Lions. If you want to bet the Bombers, just wait. Just wait, because every hour it seems the number gets better. The Bombers, who were 3.5-point favorites before the Rourke news came, apparently they think Nathan Rourke's the miracle man, because this line's gone all the way now to 2.5 for BC. I'll be betting the Bombers, but I will be waiting because we're already up to plus 125 on the money line for Winnipeg. Who knows where that line ends up? And again, if you are betting at Coolbet, which you should be if you're doing anywhere, great sponsors of ours and partners of us on the Lock Shop, know that every single week you get a 20% win boost on a CFL bet of your choice. You want to parlay your picks together? You can do that. If you want to just pick your favorite side, total, whatever, just click that little green box when you make it. But again, you've got one to use per week, so use it wisely. When we get to the main page, if you go right up to the top, we've got our Lock Shop CFL parlay, and it looks like this. Calgary -2.5. We're taking the under in the Saskatchewan-Montreal game. Two very, very good defenses. Under 51.5. And we've got the Elks at -1.5. And man, the guys gave us a real nice boost. That's plus 526 if we put it in manually. They boosted it up to plus 605. So more than 6-1 on the Lock Shop Partner Parlay. Ride with Dusty and myself if you'd like to hopefully get a nice winner at about 6-1. The DGen Den Parlay put it together. Calgary on the money line for tonight. Gunnar Henderson over 1.5 total bases in that Orioles Red Sox game. And what do we got here from the Phillies Nats? We've got the Phillies on the run line -1.5. We've got some Italian football game involved, Operano Ferveriano, and the Victoria Shamrocks from lacrosse, only in the Lock Shop. That one's boosted up to plus 1466. And then our Lock Shop double play, I had the Giants last night. They gave up 5 in the top of the inning and never really in that game. We'll look to get back in the win column tonight. I'm on the Twins money line against the Rangers, and Dusty's hammering that run line for the Phillies. It was plus 227. We've got it boosted to plus 261. There's a couple of other UFC parlays as well. And don't forget, by the way, if you are a UFC guy, one of the best promo I think they've got there, I mean, it's a no-brainer. Make a $25 bet on any UFC fight on the weekend, and win or lose, get a free $25 bet on Monday. So I'll be doing that. Izzy Adesanya looking to reclaim his crown against Dirkus Duplessis, the South African champion of the UFC in that, I believe that's middleweights right now. That's the highlight of the big UFC event. And actually, we're going to talk a little UFC. This is a huge fight. Adesanya is a fascinating guy. Big rivalry with Duplessis. Our pal Aaron Bronstetter is going to be coming on the program tomorrow. So we'll have that for you tomorrow on the show. In addition to our weekly visit from Scotty Billick and, of course, Lee Hacksaw Hamilton. And, of course, a little more of me and Connor. All of that is up there at coolbet.com. Again, the combo cards are up at the top of the page, so you can get those right on the main spot. Take advantage of the boost if you'd like to ride with us. And if you haven't played a CoolBet before, when you make your first deposit, use the promo code WST, hook you up with a 100% bonus up to $200 on your first deposit. Connor, what are you thinking about this Ottawa-Calgary game tonight? Calgary's such a Jekyll and Hyde team between home and on the road.
Yeah. I've got the same mindset as you. Calgary at home is a different team, and I think they take it tonight. Even though, Jeremiah Mazzoli, I'm really interested to watch that aspect of this game, but no, I think Calgary, unfortunately for the Bombers who are trying to catch them in the West Division still, I think at home against a team with some quarterback issues, Ottawa has been impressive so far this year with Drew Brown, and their defense is maybe a little bit better than people might give them credit for, but I still think Calgary at home is going to be able to get the job done because, like you said, they're two different teams, whether they're in Calgary or away.
I still do not get it that Fajardo can play but won't start. And again,
it's
see.
Like remember the Ottawa game where Collaros was the third quarterback, but O'Shea basically said there's no chance he'll play. But Fajardo is just good to go, but second. It's weird. Like the coach hasn't really come out and said, like, oh, under no circumstance he'll play because he's really not good to go, but we need to dress him to hit the quarterback limit. Like that's what the thing with Collaros was. But it's such a shocking situation. Like, are they benching him? I doubt it. But is he not fully healthy then? Then why is he dressed?
Like that's the thing. If he can play,
yeah.
It's a head scratcher, and I don't know whether they're playing possum with the Riders or what. You would think that for the benefit of the league, like, hey, maybe Cody's back and he's starting would do a lot for the gate in Saskatchewan. But anyways, we'll see what happens. I was really hoping we were going to get Harrison Fajardo But again, a lot of people seem like they're thinking Cody's playing because of the way that this line's been moving over the last couple hours. I will tell you that. Hey, what do you, just for a second, we'll get out right away, but MOP in the CFL right now. If you it is so difficult to, I think, identify. I mean, let's face it, it was Fajardo and it was Vernon Adams. Well, Vernon Adams had the worst game of his career against the Bombers and got hurt. He's going to miss a few games. Cody's missed the last number of games. Every team has used multiple quarterbacks, it seems, except Calgary and Jake Mayer. And I don't think he has been very worthy. I mean, two guys that are standing up right now, it's Kadeem Carey in Toronto and Brady Oliveira in Winnipeg again. And if Brady keeps going at the rate that he's at, he'll get back into the conversation. But if Vernon Adams is the favorite, let's start looking down the board right now, because I'm not sure how much he's playing for the rest of the year now that Nathan Rourke is back.
You brought up earlier that the West Division is basically starting from scratch. Well, the MOP from here on out is also starting from, like, this is game one, starting this week. Nathan Rourke, does he have a chance? Only playing half the season? Zach
He's number
Collaros
2
has had
on the
really
odds
slow
boards
start.
in some places, if you can believe that. He hasn't even taken a snap yet, and people are saying he's going to be it, which is wild. That, but again, to your point, what I said earlier, it's almost like, and they always say, oh, the season doesn't start till Labor Day. We'll just call it Labor Day right now. Half of the season to go, and it's as wide as open as any. I'm seeing Trey Ford mention the guy's played 2 games, didn't even finish the last one. I can't remember a season like this that has had so many players play great at a certain point, miss time, and it being such a wide open conversation.
I do think, it is really something that I really haven't seen before in the CFL, it being this wide open, both with teams and awards this late into the season, really. But Labor Day, like you said, that's really the start of the season. It's like the NFL. It's like American Thanksgiving is the real start of the season. But I do think, like, Cody Fajardo, I don't think he'd be my favorite, but he was red hot to start the season, and the MOP favorite. Him and Vernon Adams missed a few games. If he was playing this weekend against Saskatchewan and he picked up right where he left off, like, I don't know why he's not playing if he's not fully healthy, and maybe they'll play him next week. But if he was playing this weekend and he picked up right where they left off, and Montreal continues to be the best team in the league and runs away with the East this year, I think he would be my MOP, because it was between him and VA. VA might not even play the rest of the season. Fajardo missed a few games, sure. But if he just only missed those few games and comes back and plays the way he did, then I think it'd be him. Rourke, I think, has a chance. Oliveira, if the Bombers start going on a run due to the run game and their defense, he could be in that conversation. It's going to be fascinating, but there's so many names in the hat right now. It's incredible.
There's been only one defensive player ever to win the MOP, and that was Solomon El-Mimian, and I want to say 2014. He led the league in tackles. He was, a dominating defensive player, and they gave it to him. Mm-hmm. Roland Milligan in Saskatchewan has been incredible this year, and maybe this is the year we start talking more about guys that aren't quarterbacks for the MOP. There will be a lot of recency bias when it comes to this vote. I will tell you that right now, because it seems like it's wide open as it's ever been heading to the midway point of the season. All right, we got to get out. Thanks to everyone for hanging out. Great stuff in chat today. Appreciate everyone listening on the podcast. Connor, an unexpected night off. What's on the slate tonight for you now? Going to be cranking out a little more Absolutely. College football 25 or what?
Oh yeah. Lots of college football 25. Madden 25 came out this week. I'm all over the football video games this summer. Every second of free time I have is yes. Me and my friends game share. There's this Xbox thing where you can like game share. So I bought college football. My buddy bought Madden, and we both get it through that. So I have Madden. It's good. It's Madden.
Is it better than it's been before? I mean, I didn't get it last year, and I see a lot of people. I mean, listen, everyone complains about everything online, but
right.
Like, is the gameplay close? Because I love the college football. I think it's incredible.
Ever since Madden has come out, I've still played college football a lot more. Like that I've absolutely loved this whole time. I played Madden a little bit, and it was good. But I would still go with college football. If you like college football and you can play with the CFL teams, with the team builder there, they actually do have the team builder in Madden as well, so you could do that as well. But no, I've loved college football, and it has my vote right now. We'll say
shout out to our guy Nelson Hakowich, even if he's a rider guy, for doing God's work and putting all the CFL teams in there. Remus actually did a great screen grab of Willie Jefferson killing Vernon Adams on a sack the other day and threw that out. Yeah, well, I guess we'll figure something out because there's no ball game tonight. Fish back at it tomorrow. The first place Fish. And fun talking a little baseball today. Appreciated Trevor Curl coming on. And, of course, Brandon Rewucki. Unfortunately, we didn't hook up with Derek Taylor. That just meant a little more Connor Hrabchak. That was a heck of a lot of fun. Tomorrow on the show, well, as I mentioned, Aaron Bronstetter for a few minutes, setting up this big UFC title fight on the weekend. Always fun just to catch up with Aaron. He's such a beauty. We will take you around the big stories in the NFL with Lee Hacksaw Hamilton. We'll talk a little hockey off season and a lot of Bombers Lions with Scott Billick and Connor Hrabchak as well as usual. And fingers crossed, I'm not promising anything, but we're hoping to pull off a marble race tomorrow, even without the brains of the operation. Michael Remus still here. So TBD on that. I am optimistic, but I'm not promising it. You're going to have to join us tomorrow to see how it turns out. Connor, thanks again for everything. Big thanks to Andrew Z behind the glass, as it were, getting us on and off and bringing all the guests in. Great stuff today. Enjoy this evening. CFL gets going tonight. What time is this game at? This is a Calgary game, so it's probably a little bit later. 8 o'clock tonight start for actually the games tonight and tomorrow, which actually works out well. We'll do the baseball game and the football game tomorrow night. But one thing 1 p.m. tomorrow, Friday afternoon, you know where to be, right here with us on Winnipeg Sports Talk here on YouTube. Huge thanks to all the sponsors that make the show happen each and every day, and all of you for making us a part of yours. Have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow at 1.
Oh, my God. Oh! Shut it down. Let's go home.
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.